Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Chime. My friend, start building your credit up. Open a Chime checking account with at least a $200 qualifying direct deposit to get started. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Again, for all your basic banking needs and to begin working on that credit score, head to chime.com/sacred. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by Stride Bank NA, member FDIC. Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Late payment may negatively impact your credit score. Results may vary. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols Plus, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 269. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined today by Chris Reagan. Chris, I love your shirt. It's like a maroon, maybe?
Yeah. It is exactly maroon. Yeah. I was going to elaborate on it. It's kind of something else, but no, it's exactly maroon.
Right. It's like Welch's grape jelly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Good to see you, my friend. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
I already know we talked offline, but how did everything go with the storm? You had a once in a lifetime hurricane event in Los Angeles.
Dude, it was entirely fine. It just sort of rained. It wasn't even the hardest rain that we've had here this year, which is kind of bizarre. But apparently the trajectory of the storm, dude, it ended up in Death Valley. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is crazy. I don't think people understand how deep Death Valley is inland for a hurricane to even reach that far in, especially in a climate like that. But
do you think hundreds of year-old seeds sprouted immediately like that?
Oh yeah, immediately. Yeah. They're having a conniption over there in Death Valley.
Conniption.
But but no, it veered completely away from us, which is fortunate. I know it was there are some places that were really screwed up. And I know some buildings had minor flooding. I know some people in North Hollywood, which is not that far from me, that had a little bit of flooding going on, but nothing. Yeah, I didn't wake up with a palm tree in the middle of my living room, right? Which is the primary concern. But all good, all safe. One thing that I'm glad didn't get interrupted was I got my sound system.
Oh,
and I've been messing around with that, and dude. Night and day shit. It's so nice having actual speakers that actually do something for once.
I'm excited to hear that. We're going to talk a little bit about sound later because
I bet
Sony made an acquisition right before announced it anyway, right before we began recording. That has to do with that, and we'll get to that. But I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you're well. Are you on the first floor in your building?
Yeah, but I have a staggered kind of building. But my building
is the garage underneath you or something?
No, it's I don't know. It's on somewhat of a hill. So I'm on the first floor, but my apartment is the highest up on the first floor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I lived in a house like that in San Francisco that was literally built into a hill.
Yeah. So I have
I ask only because when I lived in Santa Monica and I was on the fifth floor, if something like this happened, I would have been I don't give a flying fuck. Do what you gotta do. Yeah.
That's kind of exactly how I felt about it. I was I'm going to be fine.
I saw that Dodger Stadium got all screwed up. That was the one thing I did see.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom of a hill.
Yeah. It's also a bowl. So.
Yeah. That's also as well.
So that didn't help either.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you're well. We didn't have to, it's not like Water World. We didn't have to dispatch Kevin Costner to seek you out. Find you.
Yeah. I'm not broadcasting from a raft.
Excellent. Dustin Furman, executive producer. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today?
Doing all right. A little bit of running around this morning. I got a bone to pick with the local government. Okay.
Yeah.
They send the streets sweeper around every few months. They put up their signs. They put up signs 2 days ago. Guess what? They don't fucking come. So we don't park on the street. We park on the side street for 2 days. They don't come. So we say, fuck it. We park in front of our house. Guess what? This morning. No, I didn't get a ticket, but I hear that fucker coming down the street and bypass our cars. So I run out and I go to try to park somewhere else. Go to the next street, there's signs there. Go on the side street, there's signs there. I go around again to the other street, there's signs there. There's a parking lot a few blocks up. awful because people are parked there. I'm like, where the fuck am I? What the fuck is going on
You
here?
got to get a driveway. Your house doesn't have a driveway.
Where am I supposed to put a driveway? There's no. I can't do that. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to park the cars. I'm not trying. I don't want a ticket. I'm trying to obey the law. They don't show up when they're supposed to.
Yep.
I think this is Ben's fault. Since he was in local government here, not anymore, but I just need somebody. Somebody needs to be blamed for this.
Yeah, it's a legacy issue.
Exactly. Thank you. So other than that, though, I'm fantastic. Just same old.
Yeah, same old.
Yeah.
You could have had that same. If you heard him coming down the street, you could have had that seminal moment I described when I heard the garbage man coming on July 4th.
Well, that's kind of what happened.
And I got out there, and I did it.
Well, that's the thought. I thought initially when he came by, I'm like, fuck, it's too late. The tickets are already on the car, but they go multiple passes. So I thought, I'm going to get you, bitch. I'm going to go out there and move before you can give me the ticket. But then he got me by putting signs everywhere within a quarter mile of my house, practically.
It's like a fucking RTS.
Exactly, yeah.
Like he's denying you, he's like area of denial. That's crazy.
Exactly, yeah. So just, it's not acceptable. Local government, be better.
Yeah. Gotta get a driveway.
Difficulty impossible.
I need a new house for a driveway, which I wouldn't be opposed to, but this market right now is just... It would only be lateral moves. The prices on houses are insane. Yeah,
selling a house now would actually be a pretty good idea because stock is low, but you need to buy another house, So unless you had something going or something available, or you were building a house or something, it would be a pretty bad idea. And you would probably want to be a cash buyer because you don't want to get a rate right now. It's like 6.5% or whatever. It's brutal, dude. I couldn't believe this because my mortgage is 2.75%. Right. So, and it's ridiculous. So I put half down on my house and then took a 30-year mortgage on the rest of it. And my payment is hysterical. It's literally 1/3 of my rent in Santa Monica for my house.
Yeah.
And but the problem is that I guess if you just raise that rate to 6 points on a similar mortgage, your payment goes up over $1,000. And it's like, damn, dude, that's so fucked. I can't believe how lucky I was. I just timed. I know I've reflected on this before, boys, but my timing in so many different ways has been so good, completely devoid of any intelligence just happening. It's like, I'm going to leave California right before COVID, right? Literally right before COVID. Just going to be, I'm out of here forever. And then I end up at home. And then during the very beginnings of COVID, everything's all fucked up. The banking is all fucked up. And I'm like, I'm going to go buy a house.
Dude, I bought a car during COVID and it was one of the smartest moves because it is, I think, still worth slightly more than what I bought it for in 2021. So it's good timing for certain things, but other things like the house thing, definitely you snuck in at the right time.
Well, I always sneak in right at the right time, my friends.
That's right.
All right. Welcome to Sacred Symbols, PlayStation Podcast. You can get early ad-free access to every episode of our show that we do each and every week over at Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. You get the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas. I post a thread every week. You put your inquiries in there. You can, of course, listen to shows early and ad-free. Like I said, Sacred Symbols Plus, twice a week. We've done a lot of really good episodes recently, including about the Twisted Metal TV show and so on and so forth. Final Fantasy 16, more coming up. But one went up recently I wanted to give a shout out to, and so did Samuel Mills. He said, hey there, fellas. I wanted to give a shout out to Dustin and Lockmort for their recent Sacred Symbols Plus doing a primer for Baldur's Gate 3. I initially was on the fence about the game, not really sure if it was for me, but after their conversation, I will definitely pick it up in the near future. I would like more Sacred Symbols Plus episodes like this in the future when you think it's appropriate. Keep up the good work, lads. Yeah, I thought that was a nice idea. Well done. What do you think? Yeah,
it was... I liked that, Samuel saying it went appropriate to do more of these, but it's a very strange situation kind of where we have the PC release and then a PlayStation release slightly later. So I guess it's not impossible that we'd see other situations like this. But yeah, it came together kind of last minute, but I keep seeing people asking me, I don't know if this game is for me, but Dustin, you said the same thing and you like it. And they wanted to know more about that. And I thought, well, this is perfect. This is a huge hot topic question on the audience's mind. Let's do an episode. And Lockmort is a Baldur's Gate master. Baldur's Gate 2 is his favorite game of all time. So to have him on board for that was absolutely perfect. I'm glad to hear that people enjoyed the episode. And if you're curious about it, you haven't checked it out yet, it's totally spoiler free. So you don't need to worry about, any kind of story spoilers. We touch on like maybe one or two very early instances in the game, but I wouldn't worry about it. So if you're curious about Baldur's Gate as we get closer to the early September release date on PlayStation 5, check that out.
Cool. Yeah, very well done. And other episodes, yeah, we did. So we've done all of our Twisted Metal stuff, the Twisted Metal 1 spoiler cast kind of making up with Jaffe. We'll do Twisted Metal 2 as well soon. I'm going to talk about my experience with Alan Wake in a little while, and Hogue, maybe Dagan, and myself are going to sit down in the next week to do a review discussion and spoiler cast for Alan Wake in preparation for Alan Wake 2. So that'll be fun as well, and a lot more coming up as well. So keep an eye out or an ear out for that. The other thing is that I've been doing a bunch of guest appearances, and I did 3 Xbox podcasts in particular over the last few weeks to kind of explain and defend my points of view about what's going on with Xbox. Justin Black wrote in and said, "Hello, Sacred Men. This one is addressed to Colin. Licked, stamped, and sent. I don't know what the fuck that means. I watched your Jez interview on Xbox 2, and I really enjoyed the conversations with differing points of view. I think your arguments were salient and not really contested, but a lot of great questions were asked. My problem with the interview was actually the comment section. I thought I'd scroll down and see counter arguments of varying points only to be met with wild vitriol, fanboyism, and people attacking Colin's character using baseless accusations. My question then becomes if it's really worth it to do these interviews if it seems like the engrossed fan base of the ecosystem is inherently going to attack your character and disregard the discussion. Or is it worth putting these ideas into the ether so that viewers who aren't embracing the console wars may see the opposing views towards Game Pass and the like?" Well, it's not only about that. First of all, I want to thank everyone that had me on their shows recently. And most recently, and I think to cap it off with the biggest show of them all, of the ones I did, was Xbox 2 plus 1 with Rand and Jez. And that was a lot of fun. We went for 3 hours. And I was on Destin's show more recently as well. And a content creator, Kid Smooth, I think his name is. I did his show a few weeks ago. And these are all Xbox related shows. I encourage you to kind of listen to these different things for what they are. And it's a mistake to get involved, I think, in the comment sections. And really, I think that they betray the overall audience that's there to just listen quietly.
Yeah.
Like or not like, I don't think that most people care to say anything. And I want to underline this one point, which I think is important. And it sounds a little cocky, but it is what it is. I did these 3 shows, and as you said, none of my stances were really contested. It was fun to talk about things and answer questions and put things in a position, but I didn't leave any of these conversations thinking that I'm wrong about very much of what I said, or that what I said was pierced in any way. But that's not the reason I'm doing it either. I'm doing it so that people can hear a different point of view. And so they can hear that or they cannot at these different audiences. But the reason that people, and I guess this is where the cocky thing comes in, is that the reason that people have such vitriolic, fanboyistic responses to a lot of my stuff is because they have nothing to say about what I'm saying. And that riles them up. I think carefully about the things I say. Here's a major advantage that I have. And people like Jez have this advantage too, but not everyone that I talk to. Destin, of course, has it, is that I get to just think about this stuff all the time. It's not something I do on the side or whatever. It doesn't mean I'm always going to draw the right conclusions or I'm the smartest person in the world, but I have the advantage for 20 years or so of just thinking about this stuff. And that comes with a massive advantage. So when people want these questions and kind of this adversarial thing going with me, but I'm very easily able to answer all of these questions and to position my stuff in ways that make sense to you, which is why no one attacks that stuff. They only attack me, but not any of the things I say. Or a lot of it is just taking what I say out of context, which is something that we talked about, Jez, Rand, and I very deeply on the show. And that happens to me all the time, but there's nothing I can really do about that either. You either go into what I'm saying with the goodwill to listen to what I'm saying, or you can clip it up and do what you want with it and win your points. The people that do that kind of adversarial content, which is not really the last 2 shows I did in particular, so I'm not calling them out, but the people that do that kind of content, I've said over and over again, will be relied upon to do that kind of content forever, because no one cares about what those kinds of people have to say about actual video games. And we don't do that kind of thing here. So I encourage people to just focus on the context of the content, what people are saying, and don't worry about the haters. They will come. I believe it was coach of the New York Jets, Robert Saleh, who said on Hard Knocks last week on HBO, or Max now, as it were, if you don't have haters, you ain't popping.
No.
You know, if you don't have haters, you ain't popping. That sounds like something I might say.
I feel inspired by that, dude.
Yeah.
It's good shit.
It is. I mean, it just, it is what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I thought the conversation with Jez and Rand especially was very, very good and very, very deep and very, very fair and very, very polite and very, very honest and all those kinds of things. Nothing against those guys at all. But I didn't walk out of any of those conversations thinking that my points of view are off kilter in any way, shape, or form either. So I'm glad to continue to do these podcasts. It's fun and it's good for me to exercise. Like, I get to steer this show. We can talk about whatever I want. But on these other shows, I have no idea what's going to happen. You know, like I did that show Side Scrollers with Stuttering Craig recently, like maybe in the last month or whatever. And he really wanted to talk about Kind of Funny. Like I had no idea what we were going to talk about. And I intentionally don't want to know about what people want to talk about. So I enjoy these different appearances. Chris, have you been on anything recently? I haven't seen you doing much out there, but I don't know if I'm paying close enough attention.
No, I don't do other people's podcasts. I've got enough I've got enough on my plate with the Snark Tank, doing that multiple times a week, and then this and video stuff and stream stuff, which I've just started doing again. And the thing that I most often do is if people have videos that they want me to do like a voice in or something, I'll do that gladly. Like I just did some voiceover for like a solid JJ video, which is like he does those videos of like old. It's like those old what is it like Spider-Man or like Superman cartoons, but it's like still images and they're like revoiced and reacted into like absurd scenarios and stuff. And I did like some voice for that. That should be out Friday or something. But I'm not doing like 6 hours of other people's podcasts.
Yeah,
personally, I got too much going on.
Yeah, I think it's important to exercise that muscle in for me every once in a while, so to not get too comfortable with.
Right.
I want to kind of be positioned where it's like, all right, really challenge me. And I think I was really challenged. That's why I'm feeling just better than ever about a lot of my opinions. And and one important thing about imparting, I always think about my dad saying this long before I did any of this. I was in high school, but just kind of the idea that you really cannot control others' behavior. So you just can't get too caught up in it, you know?
Right.
People act fucking crazy on the internet. People will call me until they're blue in the face a fanboy, and that's their right to feel that way. But the content doesn't play that out. People can yell until they're blue in the face about what I'm saying on the show, but can never point to the things that are actually wrong in my various equations as I talk about these various things. That's why they attack you personally. So just don't participate in that stuff.
Right.
That's all. Be nice to. Why can't people just be nicer? You know?
Yeah.
It's very weird. It's very weird.
I don't know. There's a lot of those people are kind of like what I would call like the too far gones. You know, like it's just like those are the people really screaming. It's most people I think are sane and normal. Also, has anybody ever really yelled until they were blue? Like, I wonder what that.
I don't know.
That expression's always been bizarre. I guess until they die, maybe.
I wonder what the etymology is. Let's look it up.
The etymology of that phrase is always
until you're blue.
I assume that's a lack of oxygen.
I mean, I'm sure that's what it is, but who said it?
You
know, etymology. The idea is someone who is expending extreme effort until talking, so he's out of breath and turns blue from a lack of oxygen. Interestingly, the phrase as rendered in the 1820s was originally until one is black and blue in the face. So originally in the 1820s, it came until you're black and blue in the face. Yell until you're black and blue in the face.
Weird.
That's the best I can do right now on this short notice.
That's fair, yeah. But you were saying that it's good for you to flex that muscle or exercise that muscle.
Sure.
So that you're not too comfortable. I'm never comfortable, so it's never a problem for me.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. I appreciate that in the main, like, because I feel that to my very core, to my very soul. I understand exactly what you mean. Yeah. But in terms of, you have to have a level of confidence, I think, to steer a show like this, or at least have something to say that people are interested in. And I'm, I guess, happy to do these things because I want people to know that I'm not just, it's not just coming out of nowhere. And it's not maybe as flimsy as some people think. And without that, I would feel a little less confident in myself if I didn't expose myself to that every so often.
Right.
So, and other thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the many things we need to discuss this week, we have a big show, is merch. laststandmedia.store, shirts, stickers, sweatshirts, hats, all the rest shipped here in the United States, free shipping in the United States on stickers, especially. As you guys know, we just sold 500 copies of Super Perils of Baking, Lily Mo's most recent game, our side scroller. And we made those for PS4 special editions. They sold out in 10 minutes. Michael Needlinger wrote in and said, "Salutations, boys. Just wanted to write in to highlight the tremendous and expedient customer service from LSM's coordinator and shopkeep, Michael Watson. I had a feeling that the Super Perils of Baking physical editions would sell out rapidly, so I was on the computer at 12:59 p.m. on August 18th, hitting the refresh button like a redheaded stepchild. Thankfully, I was able to secure myself a copy along with a sweet Sacred Symbols t-shirt. To my surprise, I was also able to secure a second copy for a fellow LSM Patreon member, the infamous Kenneth Bridge of Spirits Martin, who was unable to obtain one due to his work schedule. My joy was splendorous until the following Monday. I received an email from the LSM shopkeep informing me that my second order was going to be refunded. Suspecting that the limited nature of the product more likely garnered a one product per customer policy, I emailed Miss Watson at 2:30 p.m. to ask if my suspicions were correct. I shit you not that a response was received only 4 minutes later, informing me that this was indeed the case. Luckily, our friend Ken was able to secure a copy for himself at a later time, and the universe was back in alignment. I'm sure that Micah is probably dreaming about the sweet life of an Indonesian sweatshop worker with the amount of responsibility she holds at LSM, so the fact that she took the time to email me a response so quickly to explain the situation meant a great deal to me as a customer and member of the LSM family. Keep up the good work, and Semper Fi to all the good boys and girls at the LSM crew. I guess Michael is a Marine. Good to hear from you, my friend. I want to give a shout out to Micah, first of all, because she's doing such a really great job. I'm not saying this just because she's my fiance. It's a lot. As I was saying earlier, there's a lot to it. And she's got to, and it's, see, the one thing I try to tell her, and I think you guys can relate to this, is that I'm like, just chill and do what you can. It's not a big deal. You're putting this pressure on yourself. And I think that some of that is true, but she just wants to get it done quickly and wants to get them out the door. I try to tell her, like, the audience understands. I told them we'll get this done by the middle of next month at the latest. But we're going to well exceed that. I'm pretty sure 30 or 40% of them are shipped already. We just started selling them a week ago from when, no, not even from when we're recording this, 6 days ago. So she's doing a really great job, and I want to give her a compliment. Now, really important thing here. I heard all of you out there. I've heard it. The games went too fast. Now, I knew we were going to sell through them. I assumed that was going to be the case, but I didn't think it was going to happen that quickly. Like, I thought it would happen over the day, maybe. That was my internal, like, I was like, yeah, I think they'll sell out in a day. And so that will give people time to get involved. And so they went away in 10 minutes. Now, there are two things I want to say about this. Number one, I said in the letter that I wrote alongside the release of the game that we were going to hold 500 of them, half of the run, to sell at a later date. And I was saying we could do that at a live show, or we can, whatever. We're going to sell them in November. We will let you know the date. It's probably going to be Black Friday in November when we do it. The games are going to be differentiated like this. We're going to do a different box. I won't tease what it is yet. It's funny, Dustin, because I loved your idea, but I didn't want to like steal your thunder, but I had a similar idea a long time ago with this in mind, but I wanted to give you the credit for it, at least for a little while. So it's your idea, what we're doing with the box.
Thanks.
Even though it was my idea. I wasn't going to say it originally, but I didn't want you to get too confident.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you had the same idea. It's a wonderful idea. I wonder which one you picked too. I have no idea, because you have three options, really, from my point of view, of what you could do with the box idea.
I already have a sample I can send you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's already, dude, it looks fucking awesome. I'm very excited about it.
Did you go, all right, in order of a release window, which one did you go with? 1, 2, or 3?
I'm trying to figure out exactly what you mean, because there's different
variations. One would
variations.
be the previous thing, and then you showed me 2, which would be 2 and 3, right?
Yes, then I picked 2.
2. Okay. Yeah.
Because
so
that's the biggest analog to what we already have.
Right. I agree. So the box is going to be differentiated, and we're going to give it a different certificate of authenticity, so you couldn't swap them between boxes. Not that would really matter. But the other internals are going to be the same. We're going to sell it again for $34.99. We're going to have a sale on Black Friday of all of our merch. The game will be immune to that sale, but we're going to sell it all at the same time, just so we can get everything shipped and ready and out in time for Christmas. And yeah, so the price will remain the same. One thing I learned, we could have sold this for a lot more, I guess. But,
yeah, but I got a lot of that feedback.
Yeah, but I think that's good. Like, so I'll be straight up with you. The way I see it is that we might have netted $10 per game profit, maybe when it comes to buying everything, the labor, everything that goes into it. It's probably even a little high, but the reality is that that's twice as much as we would make if we went with a partner, and we got to control the whole shebang. So it's kind of, what is it really worth it for that profit margin? Probably not, but it's good to do cool things like that. And we will have more physical goods in the future. We'll let this. So this is a lot right now. All I wanted to say is that I hear you. We'll sell the other 500 on a specific release date, probably Black Friday in November, and we'll let you know, and we'll remind everyone, and you'll have all the time in the world to prepare. If you can't be available at that time, I don't know what to do for you.
Should we do it later in the day? Maybe? Because we did it at 1. We could maybe do 4 or 5?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we could do it later in the day. That's totally fine. That's a fine idea. Here's the thing I wanted to say too. We have to have a trust? Can't we trust everyone? When we ask you to buy one copy of a game, can't you just do it?
Yeah, we know, one guy tried to buy 7.
One person bought 6 copies. And now we just put them up and then they just were sold immediately to someone else, which is fine. But it's rude because someone was prepared and ready to go, and they missed out only because someone bought 6 copies. I think that's so gratuitous and it's anathema to this entire community. I don't like it.
That's why you got to jack the prices to the point where people got to take a loan out.
Yeah.
To buy one. Yeah.
I'm looking into options, Colin, because that was one of the things where we've said that this initial 500, part of it is that it's the learning process. It's our first release. Right. So I had it set up that you could not order more than one in one single order, right? So you couldn't put 2 down as your quantity. But what I didn't calculate for was people just doing multiple orders. I assume there's a way that we can work that out for next time, that some of you out there trying to get multiple orders in will not be able to do that. But
at least be clever about it. Use a different name or a different address, different credit card, like things we couldn't possibly check.
Put some effort into it,
Yeah, a little, like past
into your scheming. Yeah.
Right. Scheme a little bit better and then you'll get away with it next time. But so anyway, I'm glad that we got people are already starting to get it in the mail, which is awesome. So people are starting to get connected with these games, and that's exciting. And so 500 more in November, the other 500, and that will be the end of the run. But these will not be the last physical games that we publish, and by any stretch of the imagination. And I want to do more physical things too, and we're getting those going. I have 2 ideas in particular. One is somewhat easy, one is more complicated, and I think we can do them both. And then we'll probably do, the next Hebroxia game or something will be, and maybe we'll print more of them next time. I don't know. Hebroxia is more popular. I mean, it's all relative.
Other platforms, maybe.
Switch. I don't know. It's dangerous, man. That's a lot of copies. 3,000 copies is a lot of copies. And I have to pay for them ahead of time. So I don't want to just be sitting on this stock forever. You probably make your money back by selling a third of them, frankly, but that's not the point. Yeah. And then there is no Xbox market, as far as I can tell, for this stuff, or I would do that too. But I don't think people really care about that stuff on Xbox. PC, I don't know if that's even a thing either. I see these old these companies. I watch the YouTuber 8-Bit guy. I really like him a lot. He's in Texas, and he made a game called Attack of the Pesky Robots, I think, or something like that. And he has put it on everything. I think there's like a Genesis version and an NES version. It's really cool. Commodore, whatever. So yeah, I like that guy a lot. He's really fun. Okay. So thank you for all of that. Good job, Micah. Well done. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Chime, the award-winning banking app and suite of basic banking features you can discover at chime.com/sacred. My friends, if you want to live in the real world of adult finance, you have to have a credit card. It's really that simple. Now, you shouldn't let credit rule or ruin your life. Quite the opposite. You should only spend what you can pay back right away and not a penny more. Now, you may be asking yourself why? Why use a credit card and pay it off immediately? Doesn't that defeat the purpose? Not if you're smart, it doesn't. For my entire adult life, I've been using credit, paying off what I owe immediately, never ever carrying a balance or spending beyond my means, and here's the kicker. I have an insane credit score as a result. Thus, we've come to what Chime can do for you, because with the Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card, the simple act of buying something and paying it off on time could help you build your credit score higher and higher. and this has myriad benefits in the adult world, as I've learned time and time again. Most recently, when I purchased my house a few years ago and got an amazing mortgage rate because I had proven my responsibility over years. When you go to rent an apartment, buy a home or car, or conduct any other major transaction, your credit score will be checked, and if it's low or non-existent, good luck. Hell, some jobs will even check your credit score to see how responsible you are. With Chime's Credit Builder Visa credit card, you can grab the bull by the horns and begin working on your credit score so that, down the line, you can get that awesome car loan or a mortgage on your new house and much more. And Chime's benefits don't stop there. In fact, you can utilize Chime in much more basic ways too, grabbing a checking account and a debit card or a savings account and so on. You can even access more than 60,000 ATMs around the US without a fee using Chime. It's important for everyone to have access to easy-to-understand, practical, and non-predatory banking options. And Chime is basically that in a nutshell, wrapped up in a neat little app for the technically inclined. My friend, start building your credit up. Open a Chime checking account with at least a $200 qualifying direct deposit to get started. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Again, for all your basic banking needs and to begin working on that credit score, head to chime.com/sacred. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by Stride Bank N.A., member FDIC. Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Late payment may negatively impact your credit score. Results may vary. Let's get into what we need to talk about. Before we get into the news, there's a lot of news items this week I want to get through. Just a few things here that we need to talk about first. Andrew Johnson, the 15th president, something like that, writes in and says, CDC, while traveling over the weekend, I subjected my wife's otherwise virgin ears to around 8.5 hours of Last Stand. Oh my God. Sacred Symbols, Constellation, and Knockback. Around 3 hours into Sacred Symbols, she decided to Google the crew as we were partaking in audio only, and I thought you might be interested in her takes on putting a face to your dulcet tones. She was quite taken aback by Colin. Expected someone larger, in quotes. And Chris thought based on his picture he should sound like a Simpsons character. But interestingly noted, Dustin looks exactly like he sounds. Interesting indeed. So she expected me to be fat? Is that what you're saying?
Do you have a fat guy voice, Colin?
Do I have a fat guy voice?
Apparently to this woman you do. I've never thought that, but it's funny to think.
What, Chris?
No, I'm trying to close my eyes and envision.
Do I have a fat guy voice?
No, but you don't have a fat guy voice, but I could see it. You know, you have a voice that I think could is very indiscernible to body type.
Oh, interesting.
You know, like it's not like I feel like I sound like a skinny person. You know what I mean? You know what I mean when I say that? You sound like just a person.
Yeah, just any man,
just any given human.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, thank you for writing in. I just thought the funniest part of that was that you subjected to your wife to 8.5 hours of this shit. I'm sure she was thrilled.
Yeah.
Zach Apuzzo wrote in and said, realistically, who amongst the three of you can swallow down the most amount of hot dogs? It's a good question.
Oh, it's easily you, Colin.
You think so?
And here's why I say that. I remember in my early days of editing, you went over your Five Guys order.
Right.
And I know you're only eating once a day.
Mm-hmm.
I could, even if I didn't eat for a day and a half, I would not be able to eat all of that at once. Throughout the day, absolutely.
Sure.
But it's all that quantity at once that I think that you're the glizzy champ of Sacred Symbols.
Yeah,
you're the glizz wizard.
The glizz whiz, dude.
I don't even know what the hell you guys are saying. This is all like some sort of foreign language.
That's a glizzy, man.
What is a glizzy? What is that? Explain that.
It's just a hot dog.
It's some like Gen Z way to say hot dog.
Really?
Yeah,
yes.
Actually, yeah.
Glizzy.
The glizzy. You're the glizzy gobbler.
Glizzy, a slang term for a hot dog, gained popularity on TikTok and other social media platforms. Originally, the term referred to a Glock firearm in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia areas.
Why? I didn't know that.
Etymology is awesome. I love that.
Dude, what?
Yeah, it's a glizzy, man.
You're the glizzy
did I
gripper.
not know that? That's insanity.
It's a very specific. It is a particular. It's like maybe like the last like 3 years, maybe
glizzy gobbler.
Yeah, you could either be the glizz whiz, the glizz gobbler, or the glizz grabber. The glizzy grabber.
Glizzy grabber.
Yeah, something to think about.
Well, I guess I'll take that as a compliment. I appreciate it. I do eat I can eat a lot at one time. And I do.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why I
Yeah.
have a skinny body and like a more athletic body, except for my gut, which is just a little bit fat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's because I would be fatter if I ate all day because I would eat like that all day.
Yeah, I can't manage that, man. Like there are certain things that I could eat a lot of, like a concerning amount of, but it's very specific, like pasta, dude. Like I'll suck down pasta, like baked ziti, that's gone. Like you can give me like 8 gallons of that stuff and it's gone. Like a full pizza, like I've had like, I think I've had like 1.5 pies once, which is a lot for me. Like, especially if you think about like the size of like a New York pie, not like a Pizza Hut pie, which is like significantly smaller even at its biggest. But like, that's it. Like I can't, hot dogs, Jesus Christ.
Should we put this to the test?
No.
Colin, the day before your wedding.
Hot dog eating
that is a really bad idea. I had a guy, I think I said this I must have said this on the show in some sort in the past. I lived with this guy. He was nice, but he was like a meathead at Northeastern one year. Yeah. And he had heard through my friends where we were talking that I could eat like a ton of big Burger King cheeseburgers. We had a Burger King on campus. And so like, it's not there anymore, RIP. And so he went and got 10 cheeseburgers and was like, oh, can you eat these? And I'm like, they all have mustard on them. So no, I can't eat these.
Can't do it.
But I feel like it depends. Like for nourishment, that's one thing. If I'm just eating to eat, if I ate as much as I thought about food and as much as I wanted to eat, I would be roly-poly, Humpty Dumpty fucking, you could just push me around. It would be perfectly circular. I would have gravity. I'd have a gravity well pulling me like a planet being pulled into a spherical shape. You know, that's how fat I would be. And so I really just try to let that go I try to live that life like 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I'm like, all right. So for instance, Micah made chicken on the grill. She loves grilling. Micah's a middle-aged man, by the way, in many ways. And she's out there grilling. She grilled burgers the other day. So on Monday, or a few days ago, we had burgers. I had 2 cheeseburgers, 2 helpings of fries for dinner. That's what I had. Like, so 2 full plates of that. That was like my meals for the day. And then yesterday she made chicken. So I made 2 huge burritos with it, with rice and all salsa and, you got the pico and whatever. But the reality is that I would do that probably 2 more times a day if I really succumbed to it.
See,
and I just have to. It's like, Chris, here's the thing. It's the concession, right? I can't diet. I'm not cutting anything out. So what I have to do is work with time, because I can't do the cutting the things out. It's like, don't eat carbs. It's like, why don't you fucking die if you think I'm not going to eat carbs, dude? What are you, crazy?
Yeah, it's impossible. Like, I can't. I couldn't live without carbs in any way. That's insane. But yeah, you've got to work with. The thing that's so funny about this is that I'm vividly envisioning an alternate reality where you left IGN to start like a Nikocado avocado like mukbang career, where you're just like, dude, here's a sausage.
What's going on with that guy?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Didn't he start out like normal and then like his whole downfall into obesity is like all on those videos, right? Like he gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
I think
right?
so. Yeah, I think he was like a musical prodigy or something like that. Like he was like really good at. He was like playing like some crazy classical shit. I don't remember if it was piano, or if it was like woodwind or like whatever the fuck, but it was like nuts. And now he's showing his asshole on OnlyFans and eating burgers.
He's on OnlyFans?
Yeah, of course. He does his content on OnlyFans.
Oh, interesting. To each their own. I find the mukbang thing though so gratuitous that it's not because you're eating. I could give a fuck what you're eating. I don't want to watch you or see or hear you eating, especially hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it is crazy. Some of the things every once in a while I go into ASMR YouTube, look around a little bit, and I'm like, this is insanity.
Promptly leave.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. Very promptly. So I don't understand. But yeah, I know it's funny you make a YouTube reference. I actually know who that is. By the way, Dustin, you made a YouTube reference to Ryan Hall or something like that, the weather guy.
Oh, the weather guy, yeah, Ryan Hall, y'all.
Ryan Hall, yeah, Ryan Hall, y'all. That is the guy that I was watching.
Okay.
You're asking if that is the guy.
Holly watches him all the time.
He's I don't know. Were you on for this, Chris? Probably not. It was probably on Sacred Symbols Plus. We were talking about Ryan Hall, y'all, who's like the YouTube weather guy.
I have no idea who that is.
And I'm really into it. It's very, very interesting. Meteorology, man.
Yeah. His videos he pumps them out, and they're high quality. He does good editing and stuff. He's
And they
I don't know how
crazy traffic.
He could be making up everything he says. I have no idea, but he looks legit. So I'm gonna just choose to believe.
I have never seen this man in my life.
It's
interesting.
I don't know that. I'm sorry to this man. All right, what else here? All right, Meatball wrote in and said, "Good day, sacred specimen. Colin, I've held my tongue long enough. When are you going to hang up that goddamn Catherine poster behind you? I've been forced to look at Catherine's upside down legs for months. Please hang it up, or at least let me buy it off you so it can be readily appreciated. Have a lovely weekend." It's not a poster. It's a pillowcase.
This item was discussed on Punching Up this past week, by the way.
Was it?
Yes, because
I have to know more. Here it is.
There was something about Micah saying that you wanted to hang it up in the living room, and while she's fine with all of the different, Mega Man, the Super Potato Bag and stuff like that being framed, there was a line that was drawn with the Catherine body pillow.
Yeah.
Or just a pillowcase, not a body pillow.
But here's the thing, and this is what I was trying to explain to her, and I'm dead serious about this. I don't have these in frames because I think Catherine is hot. I love the game Catherine and the character Catherine, right?
She happens to be hot.
She happens. Yes. Is she laying in a sexual position in a bra and underwear on a pillowcase? Yeah,
sure.
But that's not. I'm not even being ironic. It's not because I love this game. I love this game and I love her. But it's not because she's sexy. It's because it's a great game. That's what I was trying to explain, but I don't think Micah believes me.
I will. I will say. I will say something. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You say, "Oh, it's not a poster; it's a pillowcase." You've put it in a frame. It is a poster now.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's. I thought you were gonna pick it up and it was going to be a pillow, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that would have been ridiculous."
This is the box. The special edition box, also in a frame.
Yeah, exactly. That's a poster.
Did you play the remaster of that?
No, I'm waiting. Dagan and I will do it one day, but that's one of those games that I have to be really smart with knockback and games that I know we're going to play on knockback. So yeah, Catherine's one of those games. I reviewed it at IGN, but I haven't played it since. Yeah, wonderful game though. What is it on? What is it called? Full body edition.
Full body. Full body edition includes a new Catherine with a Q.
Do you know Catherine was on Vita in Japan?
I should look for that when I'm there.
Yeah,
get a little cat. That'd be a cool little thing for the collection.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Knockback because they just did. You guys just did Halo 2, and it was great. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, I sent it to you. I felt a little. I think I might have said something like, or maybe I didn't. I'm like, it feels a little weird sending you this now because I was like, I don't know if you're flooding, but you asked for this. We're gonna do Halo 3, I think, next.
You should.
As we're gonna find out, I'm in a little bit of an Xbox 360 state of mind right now. So
good, man.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
I think you'll enjoy it. It's a lot less. It's a lot more lean. It's not as story heavy. It's Halo. The original Halo trilogy is like a sandwich to me, where it's like nice bread, and the meat is too. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I looked on how long to beat or whatever, and it said 8 hours. So that's probably like in Colin World 10 hours. So that's totally fine. I'm gonna probably just blaze through it this weekend. There's so many games to play. I'll save that though for when we get there. Final thing before, actually two more things, because one of them is really important, but we're going to get to that in a second. Tommy Bacon wrote in and said, "Hello, Sacred Gents. We have a problem when it comes to the Southern man. Chris has, well, and Colin has, we do things a little bit differently down here in Georgia. What about Dustin? He needs to have a phrase to say in that accent."
It's forced then, Yeah. It's got to be natural at some point where I'll say something and then I go, oh, that's it. I also don't feel like I naturally got it. That type of voice. So we can't force these things, then it's not natural and it's not funny. So,
I'm sorry. I just envisioned like whammy wham wham wazzle.
Oh dear.
This is my brain. My brain does these things to me.
Tommy Bacon, let it happen. It'll come. All right. I wanted to ask you guys this. I put a link here to a YouTube video.
Oh, yes.
What's going on with Matty's glasses? Now, I linked to our Starfield Goes Gold, which is episode 137 of Defining Duke. But as we record this, 138 went up and he's got those goddamn glasses on again. You want to talk about something someone can't get away with? I think this might be it. Yeah.
I think those are gunners, which are like supposed to be the UV so you can look at screens longer.
Right.
Matty has a condition and you're making fun of him.
So that's medical.
I don't know if it's I don't think it's medical. But
I love that idea.
I think that is the reason.
That's fine if it's medical. I'm still judging it. I mean, you don't think I have a whole plethora of maladies? You know,
this guy thinks he could get away with sitting in a chair with wheels on it. Like that isn't the laziest thing in the world.
Dustin, I want you to put up a video. I want you to just put up a clip of him as we're talking about this so everyone can see what we're talking about.
Sure. Matty.
I don't know that we can let him get away with this. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that he can get away with it.
Yeah.
And I just was curious what you guys thought of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I have never. I don't. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person to dress like that for no reason. You know, so I assume it is UV. I assume it is because he's working constantly. Dude's like a freak workhorse, and his eyes are boiling.
He is a freak, isn't he? He really is like a very. He's like a very. I don't know. I look at his channel sometimes, and I'm like, where is all this coming from?
Yeah, it's crazy.
What the hell are you doing?
Well, we know what he's doing now. He's blowing out his eyes.
Yeah, he's looking into the future with those fucking things on. I don't know what he's doing.
He's having That's So Raven flashbacks or flash forwards, I guess, constantly. And he needs special drug dealer UV glasses.
Yeah,
what do you
can't hardly wait. Can't hardly wait. Seth Green goggles. We should get him those.
Yeah. Yeah, they do have like an air of like I'm going to proposition you for something. Like that's like that's what the glasses kind of convey to me. But
at the very least, it's saying I know something you don't.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like
a little smug, isn't it?
It puts you. It puts you down.
Right. That's right.
It's right. Like, it's like, what do you know? It's like he's preparing for a solar flare.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Matty, you're not on the Messenger spacecraft around Mercury. You don't need to be wearing those sunglasses. I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
He's probably going to sue me now or something.
This is a new gate. Glasses gate.
Glasses gate.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the things to talk about. Lots of items this week. I'm excited to get into some of these with you. Let's begin here. Blue Moose wrote into us on Patreon. Remember, patreon.com/laststandmedia, early ad-free access, 2 episodes of Sacred Symbols plus twice a week. Submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas in the thread. Blue Moose says, hello, super sacred studs. With the recent incident at Gamescom opening night with Geoff Keighley and the GTA 6 guy, I wanted to ask you all about gaming event security. This is the second time a Keighley event was interrupted by a random member of the audience, and I have to ask how this keeps happening. Both the Bill Clinton guy during the Game Awards last year and now this GTA 6 guy are funny cases, but this could have been so much worse. If random people can get on stage this easily to interrupt the show, what stops someone with more malicious intent from harming a host? Do you all worry with Sacred Symbols Live that something like this could happen to you guys? Love all the amazing content and stay safe, my friends. So, as he's discussing here, and I'm sure you guys saw during Geoff Keighley's showcase at Gamescom, guy walked up on stage. A couple people actually, I think, started to walk towards stage. I don't really know what was going, because I think and then there was like 3 waves. There was the first guy, and then there was some of his people, I think, and then there was like people trying to get them away. So it all started to mix up for me from the perspective, and they cut away as well. I don't know if there's any on the show floor like renegade shots of it. I wonder if there is. I haven't looked, but nonetheless, Dustin, you and I discussed this very briefly on Sacred Symbols Plus. We were doing recently an episode about what we're going to play for the rest of the year, and this came up. And I thought it was funny in the moment because Geoff handled it pretty well, but Geoff immediately, like I could, in my mind, I was seeing Geoff being like, what happens if I get interrupted again? And then he's like, I'm going to make him feel really bad by saying, this is so disappointing. This is so disappointing, that kind of thing. And I thought it was really funny from that perspective. But when you look at it from a more holistic perspective, it is dangerous and crazy, because the guy could have walked up and stabbed. I mean, they were in Germany, so I guess no one has guns, but could have. The guy at the Game Awards was in LA, and he could have shot him, you know?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know anybody's intention, you know, right. which is kind of like the big point. Also, like, I don't know, man, this time it was a little, I don't know. I didn't think it was all that funny this time, because it was just some older guy copying a child.
Oh,
yeah. So it like came across as like weirdly pathetic, because it's like, I'm going to do what that child did, but he's like 40. and he's like on stage, like interrupting. I feel like Geoff Keighley should have free reign to kill the next person.
I think we can all agree with that we'll give Geoff Keighley diplomatic immunity and let him do whatever he needs to do in order to survive up there. I don't think anyone would have had a problem with him. Geoff Keighley should have just taken that dude down.
Yeah, Geoff Keighley should always have a scythe on his person, ready to cleave a person in half in case they approach him on stage.
It would be cooler, obviously, him pulling out the gat immediately, or the glizzy, as you know, the other glizzy,
and
shooting him immediately.
Glizzy.
The first
generation glizzy.
G1.
Yeah, if he pulled that out and shot him, that'd be cool. But it would be even better if they captured the guy and then executed him on stage. You know, a little more like, this is what you've done. Now face the consequences. And it's Geoff it has to be Geoff that pulls the trigger.
It's just there's 4 horses in the auditorium, and they're ready to tie the limbs of the offendant in any direction.
Quarter him.
Yeah, quarter him. And just be like, well, you knew the deal. We told you the third person to do this was going to get drawn and quartered, and you've done it. So you've unwittingly signed yourself. Oh, you've signed your waiver by doing this. Right.
Well, Geoff Keighley operates a lot like the Warden of the North in Game of Thrones. He has to kill him himself.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy though. Like it's I don't know what's going on with the security at these events. Like, it's weird that people could just wander on stage in that way. Specifically this time. Like the last time, at least the kid was like sly about it. Like he went up with the devs, so like it made a little bit more sense. But this guy just like walked up. You know what I mean? Like in the middle of it made no sense.
Chris, you and I have talked about this in the past, and we agree, I think, that, you know, some weird things happen in Germany every once in a while. Some off-kilter and unusual things, at the very least, have been known to happen in that country from time to time. And
on occasion,
we'll just add this to the list, I guess.
Yeah.
Of war crimes.
Now, as far as Blue Mist is ready, what do you guys think about the fact for us and this happening to provide some context for our last 2 events, the bigger ones, so not the one in Butler, we have had full security and had like metal detectors when you walk in. And I'm assuming for the Game Awards too, when I went years ago, you always had to go through a metal detector, which doesn't mean someone can't run on stage and clock you in the face. But they're at least, hopefully, as long as the security's good, not going to pull out a knife or a gun and murder you immediately. But this still is this something that could happen, you know, at whatever the next Last Stand Live event? Do we have someone try to pull a similar move? What do we do?
I don't know. I think my family and friends have always been a little confused by my lack of concern about my own physical safety, just because I think anything can happen to anyone, but I generally believe that, what, are you really going to attack me or try to hurt me or kill me or something like that? I don't really give it much credence or thought. Maybe that's just stupid, and I should really be more concerned about it. There have been a few people and a few things in the past that have been a little more concerning, but generally speaking, people talk a big game, and then, you know, what are you gonna? You're gonna John Wilkes Booth me on the stage of a. I don't know about that. That would just be a little weird. You're gonna immortalize me. They're gonna name the stage after me, right? The Colin Moriarty Memorial Stage.
Well, let's take
Texas or whatever. Yeah.
Let's take it down a notch. Let's just say this person's, they're not necessarily trying to fucking kill you,
right?
But they're trying to run on stage, you know, like say Nier Automata is the best game ever made. Something like try to have their moment of glory.
Right. Yeah.
Quote unquote glory. What do we do about that?
If people, well, here's the thing. So this is, now we're getting into, let's stagecraft, right?
Yeah.
And if someone interrupts the show like that, I will embarrass them so brutally on stage and make sure that we have the highest resolution video of the embarrassment that I will then just ping around every corner of the internet for the rest of their lives. So you really do that kind of shit you better come at me with intent to kill.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying.
All or nothing, baby.
All or nothing, baby. That's right.
You engage at your own peril at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that I always say about, because I think I have, you know, a security system and camera. I don't actually have a security system. I have cameras and all sorts of things. And my family was like, "Are you worried about people finding you?" I'm like, "It's very easily, I'm sure, to find where I live or whatever, and my house in my neighborhood if you want, because you can find anything you want. You just kind of have to go through the world understanding that most people just don't care or want to do anything to you." and that the second you cross the threshold of my house without permission, game on. You know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what was that even from? Blue Moose? Yes. All right. I wanted to say this. Game Awards, they also confirmed December 7th. The Game Awards this year will be December 7th. So we'll obviously cover those here. Not the awards. We don't care about that, but whatever's announced there. Okay. Interesting news that was announced right before we started recording today. So we just caught it in time. Steven Totillo of Axios shared a press release from Sony on his Twitter account. And it says Sony Interactive Entertainment to acquire Audeze, a leader in audio technology and developer of award-winning headphones for gaming. And it says SIE announced today that it has entered into an agreement to acquire Audeze, a leading audio technology brand and pioneer of high-end gaming headphones. The acquisition will strengthen SIE's efforts to continue innovating when it comes to the audio experience of PlayStation games. Audeze will continue to operate independently and develop multi-platform products while benefiting from being part of the PlayStation ecosystem. And there's more if you want to read about it. I went and read about this company a little bit because I'm not really into really, really nice headphones, but apparently these guys make really expensive, nice headphones. And apparently they have 9 patents, which is pretty interesting. So I'm sure Sony probably wants some of those as well. They were founded in California in 2008, and it looks like they will operate independently. Dustin, do you have any experience with this company?
I don't. I find this to be a bit of an interesting purchase just because, well, Sony's strategy in general, which we'll get into this a little bit later with some of the new products, but they already make really high-end headphones. Maybe not the highest end of like audiophile quality, but these headphones I'm wearing, these are the Sony, they have stupid names. It's like WXM 3000 or something.
Yeah.
You know, they're made by Sony. They make very good headphones, and they also they have the PlayStation headset. They have now the Pulse, the Pulse line, and then they have the InZone line. And so now they're adding another vertical of headphones. And so I'm just curious if it's like a manufacturing thing or if they have specific technologies that they want to be able to put into their future headphones, maybe whether that's just PlayStation or maybe Sony headphones in general, because like I said, they've got a really nice lineup of headphones outside of PlayStation. So a very curious one that just to the fact that you mentioned that they're remaining independent, they're going to make Xbox and other headphones as well. So very, very interesting, and just curious to see how the integration goes.
Notice how, to Sony's credit, there is no ambiguity about what they're doing with the companies they're buying, one way or the other. They're either subsumed in the PlayStation studios, in which you know what that means. They're a Bungie-like acquisition in which the first paragraph it says they are independent and remaining multi-platform, or even something like this where they're like they're independent and remaining multi-platform. I just must say that I appreciate the communication from the very top. If you have, so it's like when Marathon was announced and people were like, "Oh, it's not a PlayStation game." I'm like, "What?" Universe for you, and at least there, for all of the communication Sony doesn't do, they did tell you that, and so I appreciate that. Now, Chris, let's kick it over to you. As I understand it from reading about these guys, and it says it here in their press release on Business Wire, the headphones that they make at Audeze are primarily for professional audio, like engineers and audiophiles specifically. The gaming market, they make headphones for in a smaller way, but they're very high end, like higher end than something Sony does in the PlayStation brand. But to your credit, or to your take there, Dustin, Sony has a series of iconic headphones that are used in studios for decades. So it's not like they're lacking that either. I think that this is probably, though, a higher end thing having to do with patents. And here's what they say, Chris. It says, where it is. I don't want to read the entire thing. Quote, "These headphones use Audeze's patent technology and unique planar magnetic drivers to deliver an outstanding sound experience for consumers, as well as recording professionals, including sound engineers at many game development studios." So could have some angle to do with that because it is in the PlayStation family. Obviously not going to be a studio. What do you make of this? Are you familiar with this brand?
Yeah, so I mean, not to the degree that I'm familiar with like headphones or like Sony headphones or Sennheiser or things like that, but I remember visiting like a music mixing studio, and I remember hearing like these like ridiculous like thousands of dollar headphones on this rig. And it's definitely for like audio engineers and for mixers. You can definitely hear like a lot of stuff that you don't normally hear on standard, even relatively higher end consumer grade headphones. It's cool, but it is also excessive to the point where it's like, this is clearly for the for the initial output of something. And it's cool to imagine that they would have access to that technology. I'm sure there's ways that they can leverage that for, consumer grade stuff that isn't like $4,000. But those headphones are no joke. Like those headphones, like those $1,000 headphones, you also need like an equivalently like $1,000 like audio system to even process the sound that goes into them. It's
right. You're gonna need a mixer and all that.
Yeah,
and
yep. Yeah. It's I kind of like it. I liken it a little bit to in the same way that film doesn't degrade in the same way that digital media does. Like when it's transposed, like if you film something on digital in like 1080, that's all you have. Whereas like film can be like endlessly kind of upscaled because film captures everything. It's a similar situation to that, where it's like that's like the most everything that it could be, is what you're hearing.
Sure.
And it's, I don't know, man. It's good. It's good tech. I only used one pair of Audeze, but it was pretty nuts.
Just a quick clarification, Colin, I wanted to bring up, because I said about Sony not being in this market. I will, now that I was looking initially at the gaming stuff, which they have some higher end stuff, but I didn't realize this Audeze, they sell headphones for $4,500. Yeah, so dude. This is even, so I looked, Sony's most expensive line of headphones, and this isn't PlayStation, but just headphones in general, are a little less than $2,000. So this is actually quite a degree bigger than I thought, as far as like what their the quality level that they're purchasing into with this company.
Yeah, I think that's something to do with these patents, and I wonder if Audeze has anything to do, or the technologies, or the patent, maybe a license or something with the headsets we're going to talk about later in the show, as well. Because Sony is an internal technologies company. They do invest in many things outside, but it's funny that they want to subsume something and get there quicker, I guess, or maybe in a bigger way. And maybe that name is I should, this happened right before we recorded, so I had no time to research it very deeply, but it would be interesting to talk to someone like Ramon and see what he thinks. All right. Some movie/TV information about a couple of things maybe coming up. Let's start with this, though. Rave Lord Naito 11 wrote in and said, "Good day, Sacred Lads. You see the rumors of Tom Holland and Chris Pratt starring in Jak and Daxter. Is the casting director at Sony autistic and did not get that the internet was joking when we fan casted Tom Holland in every PlayStation movie or show? Are we going to see Tom Holland star as Aloy in the Netflix series with every robot being voiced by Seth Rogen, where they do his iconic laugh every few minutes? Cheers, take care of yourselves, and have a great week." So Insider Gaming reports this, although this came from a Twitter user that's well known in film and TV for their leaks, named My Time to Shine Hello. Who knows who they are? And here it says that the Jak and Daxter live action movie might be in the works. And I don't know, apparently Tom Holland and Chris Pratt are the characters or the actors that are lined up for these two. Who knows if this is true or not? It sounds so unbelievable, but I guess the veracity of the leaker should be taken into question in the sense that this person apparently is reliable in their realm. So let's go to you, Dustin. What do you think of this?
Well, it really sounds like right now that anything's on the table for Sony in terms of IP and use within PlayStation productions. So from that angle, I think that this sounds likely. In fact, I would say that the speccing out of a Jak and Daxter movie is happening. Whether it will actually happen, I don't know. To me, the immediate casting of Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, that sounds a little like, oh, I heard they want to get Tom Holland and Chris Pratt or something like that. It just seems a little far-fetched, a little too, quite frankly, like the meme, right? And that's what the writer mentioned about how this was the meme about Tom Holland wanting to be Jak. And then the Chris Pratt thing is, every character ever being voiced by Chris Pratt after the Mario movie. So I'm unsure. I think there's a thread of truth for sure, but I'm not buying full in on this exact configuration.
It's worth noting that the director attached to it is Ruben Fleischer, who directed Uncharted. So this could conceivably be the next project that he's working on. Chris, what do you make of this? Jak and Daxter possibility? Of course, Naughty Dog franchise, somewhat storied Naughty Dog franchise. I would argue the least important Naughty Dog IP in the Sony era, even going back to the Crash Bandicoot era. But of course, we haven't seen a new game from them since Jak X. That would be 2005. The series, of course, began in 2001. We last saw Jak and Daxter 2009. Last Frontier from High Impact Games, RIP.
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Although that is partially due to bias, because that also happens to be the only Naughty Dog franchise that I just completely missed the boat on. I wasn't really paying attention. I was big on Crash Bandicoot. Then PS2 happened, and I was playing Dragon Ball Z, as I've said multiple times on the show. And then I saw Uncharted and Last of Us and all that stuff. But I don't know what you could really do with Jak and Daxter in the context of a film. I definitely don't know what you can do with Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. It feels like, oh, Bill Burr and Ellen DeGeneres. It's like just anybody. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, why not anybody at that point? But I don't know. Like, I am personally not all that intrigued, enticed, or excited by the prospect of a Jak and Daxter live action film, TV show, really anything. It just it holds no importance to me. So I'm curious as to what this would even be in the first place.
Yeah, Jak and Daxter's not a very important franchise to me either. I played only the first one and just didn't really speak to me too much. Something I would like to get back to maybe at some point to fill in that gap in my own knowledge. I know people are really, really passionate about it. It just seems like, well, from two perspectives. First of all, Naughty Dog itself has long moved on from that level of content, I think. But the other thing is that I just feel like anything being on the table is kind of lame. Let's take it easy. Take things slow. Let things marinate a little bit. Why is everything got to be on the table right now? And speaking of that, it looks like Real Radic, who's a listener of our show, and you were just on his podcast, right? Recently, Dustin. He discovered something interesting. So talk to me a little bit about this, because you emailed about this today, but it has to do with the fact that PlayStation Productions, so that, of course, that's Sony's movie and TV silo that is responsible for Uncharted and Twisted Metal and all the rest of The Last of Us on HBO / Max. Medieval might be one of these things that's coming to. So talk to me a little bit about this.
This was really funny how this played out, just because in our very own Discord server, this individual, Radic, posted, he was like, dude, the PlayStation Productions website is out. And everyone, was laughing about it because we're like, who cares about this website? And lo and behold, there's this video on it that has a tease for Medieval being a thing that they're doing. And what's extra funny about this is that Push Square picked up on it through his tweet, and now Video Game Chronicle also made an article because he was really the first person to discover it. And apparently in that article that I had sent you, Colin, there's some interesting people that are retweeting it. Particularly, let's see, Chris Amick and Ben Meckler, both who wrote for a series like Kung Fu Panda and some other stuff, retweeted it, and one of them had like a thinking emoji and stuff like that. So cool. There's definitely some absolute validity, and this isn't the first time we've seen PlayStation tease something like this in a random video, like we saw with the Uncharted tease. Potentially, it hasn't come to fruition, but this is very obvious that it's Sir Daniel's legs in this video randomly. So I would say lock it in. It's happening.
Cool. Yeah, and this is the kind of shit that I think Sony should do a lot more of and does well in their silence, right? They don't really say very much. That's a little frustrating, but that they're willing to just be like, oh, here's an Uncharted game that we're teasing, or here's Medieval that we're teasing. I think that's kind of neat. Chris, you're a fan of Medieval. Of course, to structure it for everyone, Medieval, for the unfamiliar, was a somewhat prominent 2-game series in the PS1 era from a Sony studio called Cambridge Studio that turned into Guerrilla Cambridge and then went away. They don't exist anymore. And there was, of course, the PSP launch era Resurrection.
Resurrection.
And then Other Ocean did that Medieval remake kind of in 2019 that I ended up platinuming, and that's the last we saw of it. And by the way, do you know what Other Ocean is doing now? No. I was reading about this in preparation. They're making Intellivision Amico games.
Weird.
Ooh.
So Chris, talk to me about this Medieval, the possibility of a Medieval TV show, movie. I mean, this could be anything because it's in with PlayStation Productions. What would you like it to be? Cartoon would be pretty interesting. Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
So maybe something in that line. Let's see what you think here.
I mean, dude, I'm down for anything Medieval because I love the premise of Medieval so much. The idea of like a venerated war hero who is actually completely lame and is only famous because of people's misunderstanding of what he actually did. I love that. It's very, and the British tone of the game, like the original game. And I was always more fond of Medieval 2 personally, and I'm kind of sad that game never got remade, but maybe, who knows? Maybe this is what that is. But I love that universe a lot. I love the British texture to it. I think it's really funny. I think it's morbid. I think it's interesting. I think it's got legs for something. I don't know if this is going to be like a game or a movie or a TV show or what. I think any of that could work if handled correctly, but you really have to get a British sensibility in there, though. That's kind of the thing. You can't Americanize Medieval. Like it would be so bad. I think that's partially why Resurrection isn't particularly beloved, is because it's very like they even added like some wacky cartoon like worm or something in that game. Like I don't remember the exact type of character it was, but it was like some silly, wacky, like absurdist kind of character that they threw into the original game to make it a little bit more appealing to kids, and it just completely fucked the tone. So they got to be careful with it, but I'm a big fan of Sir Dan. I'm a big fan of that IP, and it's nice to see that it's not forgotten, and that it will continue in some way.
Yeah, well said. And RIP Cambridge Studio, you are missed.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else is going on here. Oh, I saw this on gamesindustry.biz. Thought this was interesting. Games Industry wrote about a study done by Nico Partners, who were an analyst, series of analysts, an analyst firm. And they went after specifically young gamers in Japan and spoke to a bunch of people there. And I thought it was interesting that they found that console gaming is the most popular format among Japanese gamers, 72.3%. Mobile, obviously very high, 63.5%. And they're playing more hours per week, about 8 hours per week, as opposed to 6.5 on mobile, as opposed to console. So not everything is so rosy. But I was wondering, Dustin, will the Japanese save us? Because they seem to have an interesting market here when you read this article about, really receptive to console gaming, which is awesome, continually more than any other format. And then it says here that they are becoming increasingly receptive to foreign games. So they kind of are able to get the best of both worlds in a way that we almost can't get here, because they don't have to get they're not going to get everything localized, of course, but a lot of the Japanese stuff to this day that we would be interested in doesn't necessarily get localized either quickly or at all. It's not quite as bad as it used to be, of course. I'm just seeing something interesting here. I just wanted to discuss it really quick. Do you see anything interesting in this study from Nico?
Yeah, it's good to see, especially because overall, Japan really does favor a lot of mobile stuff, whether that's, mobile phone, iOS type gaming, or something like the Nintendo Switch that they can take with them. So to see that traditional console, PlayStation, whatever, gaming is still on the rise is good. And it's cool to see the fact that Japanese gamers are becoming more interested in Western games. At the same time, I feel like Western gamers are getting more and more interested in Japanese games.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have been interested in Japanese games for a very, very long time, since the very beginning. But when you see games like Persona, which were originally a very niche Japanese IP, become huge, huge games here in the West, and even stuff like Yakuza become really, really big over here. It's definitely a shift is happening, and that's something we've just been seeing a lot over the years, is that Japanese culture, whether it's gaming or manga or anime or whatever, it just continually gets bigger here. So to see that happening on the flip side for them too, it's kind of a rising tide raises all situation with this.
Yeah, well said. I'm so pleased that, how do you put this? The Japanese were so vital to gaming as we understand it as a culture. And though that, especially with the revival of games with the Nintendo and NES in the mid to late 80s, they exported it and were able to kind of retain their own cultural identity in games while everyone else embraced the machine anyway. I think, for instance, about Genesis, games like Sonic really were, the brainchild of Japanese people, but a lot of it developed in the States and really made for a Western audience while they tried to retain their more Japanese-ness with their own products. And I think about the PS1 in that way as well, which really radically used Western development in a way that no Japanese publisher or console manufacturer had to that time. And we think about games like Twisted Metal that we talk about a lot recently, which was, of course, made in Utah. So I think about that, Chris, and I wonder if you see anything here that's interesting to you from the Nico study, specifically through the context of Japanese gamers maybe becoming a little bit like the prototypical gamer I'd love to see exported around the world that loves all these different games on console. Let's keep it on console, yes?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I just the most interesting aspect of this to me is just the PC's lack of seeming relevance over there. Like, because it feels over here like it's kind of the opposite. I don't know how true that actually is statistics wise, but like PC just feels a lot more integral over here, even with stuff like Doom and like some of those games, and even something like Baldur's Gate, which was, a little bit more of a PC centric experience. It's, I don't know. I don't know if I have much to say about it other than I just feel like it's just interesting that type of game never really rooted itself in the same way over there.
Well, to your point, and I didn't say this before, but it's here and you read it. It's 14.7% of respondents play on PC that identify themselves as gamers, which would definitely be higher here in the States, probably at its highest in Europe, maybe, or would it be highest here in console installation? Would probably be highest in Europe.
I was thinking doesn't China have a big PC base because of all like
China,
might be the biggest there. I don't know though.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Games Industry App is for that interesting study. We'll keep an eye on the way things evolve in our beloved Japan. Dustin will be going in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to turn Japanese. All right.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Let's be honest. There's nothing more you want than to be Japanese, right? In this world.
I don't know. I've been doing a lot of research, like cultural stuff, to make sure I don't offend anybody. I've told you guys about some of that. Some things there sounds like a lot of societal pressure that I would not envy. But you can just go there and enjoy the anime.
Go to your Shinto temples in
Kyoto
with your tattoo showing. Isn't that like a no-no?
Yeah,
right.
The bathhouse. You can't go to the onsen. Certain ones will allow you if you have tattoos, which I think it's funny because it's rooted in Yakuza,
right?
Which I think is just funny that I'm not allowed in because of Yakuza rules. It's like, do I look like a guy that would be in the Yakuza?
Maybe
no, you don't. But that's exactly why they would hire you. That's exactly why they would employ you.
Yeah.
It's like no one would expect this Yakuza.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a fair observation for sure.
Dustin Furman, Yakuza at large.
All right. Yakuza at large. Very well done. All right. Let's see here. I wanted to talk about this game. So a few things came out of Gamescom worth discussing. And one of them was during Geoff Keighley's presentation, a game called Crimson Desert was shown. This is an action RPG from a South Korean, primarily MMO firm called Pearl Abyss. And people will remember that this game was announced for PlayStation 5 back in 2020. And out of all the things that I saw, and I was kind of I was going through Gamatsu and reading different trailers and stuff, this game looks fucking awesome. Curious what you guys thought. Dustin, let's go to you.
Yeah, I didn't realize this was a single player game because I just stupidly assumed that Crimson Desert was a sequel to Black Desert.
Right, and Black Desert's an MMO, right.
Correct. I gotta say, when I see this trailer, it looks so expansive and so beautiful with such an interactive world that I get kind of the Watch Dogs feeling when you saw that initial trailer and then it ended up not being real, which I guess is a good thing for this trailer, is that it looks so good that I don't believe it in some ways. But if this game comes out and it's as awesome and as interactive, you've got like GTA style mechanics, guys kicking people off of carts, and it's like crime noted and stuff like that. In one shot in particular, early on, it shows some fighting and there's like a puddle on the ground. The puddle looks amazing. I was immediately drawn to how realistic this puddle looked. I was like, wow, it's at 17 seconds in the trailer, a little before that, like 14. I'm like, what? Surely this is running on the most beefy high-end PC, because there's no, I can't believe it's going to look that good.
That is a mesmerizing puddle, I will say.
Okay, good. So it's not just me.
Wow. Crimson Desert is made on proprietary engine, which is interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. It gives me too good to be true vibes, but It looks great. I'll tell you for sure.
Yeah, it really does. To set it up as I kick it over to Chris to get his thoughts, it says about Crimson Desert here in the description for people that want a little bit more. Quote, Crimson Desert is an upcoming open world action adventure which will make a global release on both console and PC. An epic of survival with a focus on immersive storytelling and intense action, Crimson Desert follows a group of struggling mercenaries and the many characters who cross their paths in the vast continent of Pywel, or Pywel, P-Y-W-E-L. This is a world where heroes are made, but not without incredible hardship, pain, and perseverance. Chris, does this look up your alley? I mean, this gives me Final Fantasy 16 vibes in some way, and I feel like it's not all the way there. They're very different games. I think Final Fantasy 16 is much more of a spectacle and way bigger in some ways, but this game, I don't know. I found it very appealing. It's something I definitely want to check out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it looks incredible, especially that puddle. But, I think there is something about it that I look at it and I'm like, this looks great, but also it's open world. It looks like there's a lot to do. There's a lot of like, oh, hey, here's like it's even got like Breath of the Wild looking, or not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom looking floating islands at play too. So it looks like super expansive. I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe some sort of subterranean aspect to it. I'm watching the trailer as I'm talking, and I just saw a donkey that looked exactly like Shrek donkey, and it really just
did something for you.
Really genuinely distracted the hell out of me. But no, it looks great. I just it's also one of these things where it's like I am just a little tired of like these games that are like so expansive that they're intimidating. Like I loved Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom is great, but I also feel like I'm sated. Like I'm fine for a while as far as that goes. Which I don't know. Is there an actual release date for this one or no?
It doesn't have any even release timing for it.
Well, that's good, because that means like by the time it's out, it'll probably be ready for something like this. But definitely like right now, I'm not interested in anything like this. I want to play some linear stuff for many years.
Yeah, fair enough.
Before I get into this again. But it looks incredible. Like there's no doubt about it. Like it looks like something that could potentially be like a pretty huge benchmark for open world. I can't believe I missed that puddle the first time. That really is a mesmerizing looking fucking puddle.
It's just interesting because there's multiple people affecting it.
Yeah, it really
for
like,
people that don't know what we're talking about. There's a fight scene over this like puddle, this like standing water in a courtyard or whatever, and it's being affected, and everyone's stepping in it in different places, and it's kind of interesting. It's beautiful.
13 seconds in, man. It's a good looking game, but I am with Dustin where like there is like a too good to be true angle to it in certain ways. I wouldn't be surprised to see this downgraded in some way, but it still looks like it could probably be fun.
Crimson Desert. Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Keep that South Korean flair too with the logo. I love the logo at the end where it says it in South Korean in Korean in huge letters, and then it just says it underneath in Crimson Desert in small letters. Like, let's embrace that South Koreanness. Let's get South Korea better represented in the console space. Let's start to flex that creativity that we know exists on the peninsula. All right. Crimson Desert, moving on. This is interesting. I think you'll be able to help me with this, Dustin. Jean-Claude Brulé wrote in with an unnecessarily French name, and he says, "Hello, Sacred Men." Have you all seen the news in regards to the resolution and FPS of the Metal Gear collection? 1080p 60 frames is max PS5 and supposedly even the same on PC. What a huge letdown. This should have been easily 4K 60. Getting some Red Dead Redemption vibes right now. Oh, and of course, fanboys are trying to claim that 1080p is fine enough and modders can always enhance the PC version. Thoughts? So here's the thing that's going on with the Metal Gear Master Collection, and this is according to Video Games Chronicle, our friends over there, although a lot of people have been writing about this, is that it was unclear what was going on because the game, I think at Gamescom, was previewed specifically on Switch, which is showing the game, I think, at 720 and 30 frames, if I'm not mistaken, which is insane because I'm pretty sure the original game in the PS3 Bluepoint version runs at a higher resolution. That doesn't even make any sense, but they went and asked them specifically what's going on with the frame rate and resolution and discovered that everything except for Switch, so including PS5, will be 1080 and 60 and for these various games. And it's also worth noting that while the game comes to PS5 October 24th. I guess there'll be a PS4 version following at an unknown time as well. I don't know if they're going to happen at the same time. But anyway, Dustin, what's going on with this? Because people are upset about this, but 1080-60 seems perfectly fine for me. They're PS2 games and a PS1 game. So do we really want to see like the fucking best? What textures are you even looking at in the Metal Gear side? So what, am I right? Am I on the right track here or what?
I agree. I want to clarify one thing to save you from a comment.
Yeah, save me.
The Switch version, which when they previewed it, was 720p in both handheld and docked. But according to Konami, when it comes out, the docked mode will be 1080p, but 30 FPS.
Couldn't
max,
get Metal Gear Solid 2 running at 60 frames on Switch?
Yeah, that's a PS2 game. That's that one is definitely the most weird.
Yeah.
So the way I look at this is, could they have done a 4K 60 version? It's definitely possible. I think that it would still have some compromises, particularly that anything pre-rendered that Bluepoint did the work on, they would have to do that again. And a lot of the in-game graphics are probably not in 4K. So like the UI and stuff like that wouldn't be in 4K. So those would be in 1080p anyway. And then also there's the matter of the textures and the assets and stuff in the game that would be, sure, I think it would look better in 4K, but I'm also perfectly fine with 1080p 60. In fact, when I played the Bluepoint versions on my Series X, and someone can correct me, but it's not one of the games that scales up. So I believe that was 720p, but maybe it was 1080. Either way, I looked at it, I was like, wow, this looks great on my 4K TV. It was totally fine. And so I understand that the thought is like, this is called the Master Collection, should be the end all be all at the absolute highest resolution. And I get that, but it's just not something that personally really bothers me. Like I said, 1080p for some PS2 games, a PS1 game, as long as the frame rate is totally solid, then I'm cool with that. It's just not a big deal to me.
Chris, where do you stand on this? I don't know. I'm a little more confused about the performance on the Switch than I am on the performance for the PS5, where I just agree. I don't know that I need to be running at 120 frames at 4K or whatever, either or, because they're just old games. And 1080 is about as good as it's going to get with that. I mean, I don't want to see the sharpest, shittiest polygonal, ugly early PS2 graphics or PS1 graphics. I think people are really misremembering what Metal Gear Solid 1 looks like, especially. So why would you want to play that in 4K? I guess I'm a little confused about that.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't the grain and like I don't know, it just makes it seem appropriately old when you're not playing it in the most modern resolutions and frame rates. But I think 60 frames is obviously a no-brainer. And I'm pretty sure, didn't it run on 60 frames even on PS2?
Metal Gear Solid 2 did. Metal Gear Solid 3, I don't think ran at 60 on PS2. Depends on which because there's a version 2 where you can I think it's Subsistence has a different camera mode, which I think makes the frame rate not as good. I'll look it up while Chris is talking, but let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't bother me necessarily. I mean, I've played the Bluepoint games very, very recently on Xbox backwards compatibility, and I don't know what the settings are for that game. I don't know what resolution or frame rate it's running at, but it felt very, very smooth to me. It felt about as sharp as it needed to be. I don't really think you're missing out on much. I guess if you have like an 80-inch TV, it's probably going to be a little weird playing something at 1080p, and it's probably going to look like shit. But I think for most people, I think cap out at around like 55-inch TVs, and in my experience on a 55-inch OLED, 4K is pretty good. And I don't really think there's a problem. I'm with you that the Switch not being able to run it at 60 is confusing. Like, if the PS2 could run Metal Gear Solid 2 at 60, like, the Switch should have no problem. And that's for me where the confusion is. I don't really get Red Dead vibes from this, personally. Like, the Red Dead Redemption remaster, remake, whatever you want, re-upload, or whatever you want to call it, is a lot more egregious to me than this is. I don't really see the big deal, especially because there's a lot in this collection. that otherwise wouldn't be. The fact that Metal Gear Solid 1 is going to be playable again at all on modern hardware in the way that it is, and then the fact that it's got all the screenplay stuff, and I don't know, they're old games. I don't need them to be 4K.
Oh,
I have a theory.
I don't even need modern games to be 4K also.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm curious about this because, so just to verify, Metal Gear Solid 3 on PS2 ran somewhere between 15 and 30 FPS. So it was definitely chugging. Metal Gear Solid 2 was 60 FPS on PS2. So you'll be getting the better frame rate for Metal Gear Solid 3, just like the
Wait, Metal Gear Solid 1 ran at 15 to 30 frames? Is that
No.
Oh.
Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh, 3, okay. Really?
15 to 30 FPS.
Holy.
That sounds about right too in my
Wowzers.
memory.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not a particularly.
So my theory about this is that Konami is still fucking up the messaging because, to my understanding, I read that the Metal Gear Solid 1 port is emulated and modified. And I don't think that someone has made an emulated version or modded Metal Gear Solid 1 to run at 60 FPS. They've made the PC port and modded it and made it run at 60 FPS. So I'm wondering if that Metal Gear Solid 1 is still going to come out at 30. We'll see, though. It just seems
I'm just
they're
curious.
emulating it like that.
I'm curious about very specific aspects of Metal Gear Solid 1. Like, how are they going to do Psycho Mantis without control? Like,
Wait, you said that
I mean?
there was a solution to that, right, Dustin? That there's like a Psycho Mantis solution.
There's
is
an
there?
in-game solution. It's nowhere near as cool, but that's even built into the old PS1.
Yeah, I don't remember
disc.
that at all. That's so funny because I do not remember there being another solution. What is it again? Or I guess we shouldn't say.
Yeah, I won't say. I'll tell you later, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. All right, so good for clarity on that. Konami, let's get it together a little bit. More games announced at Gamescom. Bulletstorm VR coming to PSVR 2 December 14th. I think that's a pretty compelling title. Of course, Bulletstorm People Can Fly during their Epic era when they were owned by Epic. And it was originally released on PS3 in 2011, and then a PS4 version came out in 2017 of Bulletstorm. I think it was on PS Plus at some point as well. As we remember, People Can Fly basically were spun back off of Epic. They still exist to this day. They own the IP, so they're doing this on their own. Any interest in this? Chris, was this a Bulletstorm? Was this this might have been a U game back in the day.
Totally.
Wasn't Cliffy B somehow involved with this? And like, am I crazy? Let me look this up. Like in some story way or something.
I think so. That sounds correct, but I don't remember if that's true or not. And I don't want to say
he was the designer. He was the designer.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, no, I thought Bulletstorm was awesome. The only problem I ever really had with Bulletstorm was honestly just the way that they handled controls. Like the controls in that game were very, very, very weird. If I remember correctly, it was like I'm sure somebody somebody listening will be able to like remember this more specifically. But like I remember being like, this is a really great game, but whoever designed these controls they're smoking something, because it's a truly baffling control scheme. But I don't know, the style aspect of Bulletstorm and like using that weird like energy whip to whip people up in the air and like kick them into spikes and chain grenades and all that stuff. That's pretty cool. And I feel like a VR version would be compelling. I don't know. I'm very curious to check this one out, because Bulletstorm is such a weird game.
Yeah, I'm surprised they never got like a real sequel off the ground or anything. And People Could Fly obviously has other things going. They did Outriders, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I hope that they do another one. I think they might with Square Enix. That would be pretty cool, but we'll see. Dustin, Bulletstorm PSVR 2. Any interest? I think this is a pretty cool. I also love the timing, by the way. December 17th. Love it. Why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think?
So I think I maybe played a demo for Bulletstorm when it originally came out, but it's a game that I've not really played. And I'm excited about this just because I want to support VR conversions, because I think there's so much potential. Once again, I'll say, please, whoever's listening out there, someone at 2K or PlayStation, whatever, BioShock VR is such an easy home run. Like just imagining having a plasmid in one hand and your gun in the other, and being immersed in Rapture. It'd be so easy. I'm not saying a VR conversion is easy, but the idea and the concept is already there. So I want to support this. I think the trailer looks awesome, and I have a few reasons now to get back into my PlayStation VR. I'm so swamped with other games that I want to play right now, but around December, like you said, that's a good time. Maybe around Christmas break, just check this out for a bit.
Yeah. I keep thinking I got to go back and play PSVR 2, but then I realize there's just too many conventional games for me to play. There's just really it's an opportunity cost I can't afford right now. All right. So Bulletstorm VR comes to PSVR 2 on December 14th. Again, love the date, because if people get a PSVR 2 for Christmas, which some people no doubt will, that will be like a newly available game that's probably going to get a lot of shine in the store. Smart.
Yeah.
Dustin, I'm sorry, Chris, I want to go to you with this on this first one here, or this next one, Destiny 2, The Final Shape. Kaz and Risk wrote in and said, "Hey, Secret Crew, what did Chris think of the Destiny 2 showcase? Final Shape seems to be ending the light and dark saga with a nostalgia-fueled linear campaign, and the post-release episodes sound better than the seasonal mode. What are your thoughts?" So catch us up on what's going on here and why we should care about this upcoming Destiny 2 expansion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, I feel like there's a lot to say, but I think they're going in the right direction with it. I think having a specifically linear campaign is a good move, because that was like one of the better aspects of like specifically the Witch Queen, and the fact that some of those characters are definitely going to be back in play by the time that expansion is out. If the current season is any indication, that's pretty exciting. Seeing the D1 tower in there again was cool. I thought some of the supers were really entertaining. I like that it seems like they're building towards a really interesting finale. I like that the final boss is actually like the raid, so you actually have to get a group of people together to actually do it. I feel like the last level of a campaign mission to beat the final boss might have felt a little bit anticlimactic. I think it's all in the right place, having, you know, that support auto rifle frame where you can shoot your enemies to damage them and shoot your allies to heal them is cool. There was a lot of like, it was a pretty expansive showcase, and so like boiling it down is a little bit difficult. But I think they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. I think the episodic structure of content going forward after this is a big question mark for me, because I feel like they are building up to a moment in time right now with the Final Shape that is essentially their end game, and I feel like a lot of people are going to feel very, very comfortable jumping off of Destiny after, you know, the Final Shape is concluded, because it feels like that's the conclusion of what was originally intended with this entire story in the first place. So there is a concern about these future episodes feeling a little bit like a shambling, like some sort of like how the MCU feels currently, where like they had their big finale and now you have, I don't even know what you have now. Like you have She-Hulk, you know, like there's a concern that that Destiny might meander into a space where we've already dealt with this universe-ending threat and presumably will have concluded it leading into these episodes. How are you going to keep the stakes reasonable? Like, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to keep this universe going forward in a way that feels compelling? That's a point of confusion for me. But as far as what the Final Shape is looking like, I think it looks super cool. I'm jumping into, I didn't put it into the games that I'm playing right now, but I'm messing around with the new season of The Witch. Must be the season of The Witch. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good so far. I'm digging some of the character interactions. The fact that the Witch Queen is still in play is very smart. Deborah Wilson's a great actress, so having her back in some capacity is very, very wise. I know this is kind of separate, but I'm more curious about how Keith David is going to step into Lance Reddick's old role and how that's going to present itself, because that's going to be a big deal. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. There's also, and just to close this out real quick, there's also just for me this underlying excitement and curiosity about what Marathon is, honestly. So like I'm really looking forward to Destiny concluding, or at least for me, so that way I can have something new to look forward to. So like a lot of Destiny stuff isn't hitting in the same way that it used to for me when Marathon is just clearly on the horizon. But I think they're in good shape.
Yeah, I'm curious what it's a deeper conversation for another podcast and we should do it sometime. But
yeah,
where do they go from here is a big question, because could you reasonably, from an economic point of view, just say like, we have to just stop Destiny 2, right? It's the GTA Online thing, but much more magnified and smaller, where if you have potentially millions of people still playing your game regardless, do you ever walk away from it, or you just keep kicking things out for it endlessly, or do you have the balls? And I think that's what it requires, is the balls to say we're done. But you can't just do it. You got to have something ready to go to get them. See, like, is there a Destiny 3, or is there just another huge thing you can get going? That, because Marathon doesn't seem like a Destiny replacement, right?
No. It's purely for me.
Like, well, no, I think Marathon looks
Bungie
cool,
fan, you know?
Right. It seems like more of a game as a service in a more pure way, right? As opposed to this platform in which you build upon. And I wonder if they'll want to have both, and presumably they would. So maybe they ping from, Destiny 2 and pong over to Marathon and then ping back to a new thing. I wonder if that's the idea, because they do have something new in development beyond this, right? I would assume.
Yeah, there was somebody was in my chat, my Twitch chat recently, talking about gummy bears, which is like some code name for like something that they're working on. They've always had these ridiculous code names for that. I think Halo was Blam back in the day. But I don't know, man. I think it's not that Destiny needs to end necessarily, especially because we know from like certain acquisitions and certain things that have come out about Bungie in the past, in like the last year or so, that they are spinning up some transmedia stuff. Presumably, there will presumably be more, linear or traditional, TV or film or animated or whatever additions to the Destiny universe in some capacity, if what I've seen on certain reports is accurate. And it would be bizarre to build that up as your main saga is concluding. And, a lot of my concern really just stems from the way that Marvel's been handled and the way that Star Wars has been handled, where it's like, it just seems to be like, once they've concluded their big arc, they just sort of shamble on out of obligation. Not to say that Destiny is necessarily destined to fall into that trap. Cause it's, I feel like it's a very robust world. They could do a lot with it. But that it's happened with Marvel and Star Wars is not a fantastic sign. So it really remains to be seen as what those episodes are going to be, how satisfying they are, and what they're willing to do for them. That will ultimately change my opinion on, how I feel they should handle it going forward. But I don't know. We'll see. That's the future.
Dustin, what do you have to add to the conversation?
Nothing really, because I'm so far behind on Destiny. I need to play Witch Queen still, and then there's another one. So I saw this was announced, but I kind of didn't want to look at it because I was like, oh, this might be... I want to play that at some point. I just don't want to see any... I've already seen some spoilers. So weird, crazy that it's finally wrapping up to some degree. I'll tell you that, Chris, though, this write-in says about the Light and the Dark saga, Kingdom Hearts vibes from that, vague light and dark stuff going on. I just saying, you and I might not be... we might be more alike than you realize.
All right, relax.
All right, some quick ones to get through here. Persona 3 Reload coming to PS4 and PS5 has a date, February 2nd, 2024. Of course, the original Persona 3 came out in Japan on PS2 in 2006 and the West in 2007. And then we got the so-called FES version or FES version on PS2 2007 in Japan, 2008 in the West, and then portable 2009 in Japan, 2010 in the West. Persona 3, of course, the preceding game to Persona 4, which was really the game that I think broke out in some way, especially with Persona 4 Golden. So they're going back and harvesting. I think that's a great idea. Dustin, thoughts?
Yeah, this new trailer looks awesome. I just love seeing they have it in 4K. They have it in 60 FPS. And it looks so incredibly good. It makes me feel glad that obviously if you've played this game and you're getting a remake, that's going to be an amazing experience. But from what I can tell, and I know that it's still too early to really make this call, but it seems like this is going to be the best way to play this game overall. And just from, visual perspective and seeing, how they're with the combat and the different animation, it just looks awesome. I'm so incredibly excited. And I like this article that you attached to it from Push Square says, pray Final Fantasy VII Rebirth isn't around there too. And that was immediately one of the things I thought when I saw that release date. It's like, oh, good. It's not that far away, but it's going to be tough if Rebirth is around that time as well. Hopefully Rebirth is more late March or something like that.
Tekken 8 has a release date coming to PS5 January 26th. I think it's on PS4 as well. We haven't gotten a Tekken game since Tekken 7 in 2015. None of us care about Tekken, but I know Cog does, so I'm sure he'll be interested in that. Dude, I was amped about these next two, although this next one specifically, I must admit, Dark Forces, the Star Wars FPS, is coming to PS4 and PS5. And I was really amped about this. This is a LucasArts game, and I have very specific memories of this. When my family got their first like really nice PC with a CD-ROM and everything, and this was in 1996, I bought a box set of games, Star Wars games, and it was like Dark Forces, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, whatever, stuff like that. And I think I loved Dark Forces more than any of them. It was one of the first-person shooters I'd ever actually played, and it was ported to PS1 in 1996. I didn't ever play it on PS1. The PC version came out in 1995, and it ultimately ended up spawning Dark Forces 2, which came out to PC in 1997, and then the whole Jedi Knight series, which people might remember, which was this whole thing that was running right on through the early 2000s from LucasArts. So I'm really amped about that, and I just can't stand Star Wars anymore. But when I saw that, I was kind of given like one of the memes looking over to the side here. I'm really excited to play that. I think I'm gonna check that one out. That's just a nice piece of Colin nostalgia there. Did either of you experience Dark Forces before? Very crude first person shooter. I mean, but it's very nostalgic. Yeah, you've played it.
I remember this is one of the games when I would go to my my grandparents' house. My grandpa is a huge Star Wars nerd. Legit, straight up. And he was a PC gamer as well. This is one of the games he had was Dark Forces. But Colin, I gotta say, where this really, tingled me the most in my body was the thought of, if this continues and we eventually get a Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast port or remake or whatever, that was my shit. Jedi Knight 2, I absolutely love that game. I played that game for dozens and dozens of hours on the PC. That's where I really got into and learned about modding in games, was on Jedi Knight 2. And then, of course, Jedi Academy was also really great. But seeing that the first game in this lineage is getting remastered really excited me. And so this is one that I may check out as well when it's available. So good to see games like this be brought forward, even though it is definitely one of the more niche Star Wars games.
Definitely. Yeah. Just a very specific, I just have that specific memory because I just wasn't much of a PC gamer. But that first couple of years we had a really nice PC, 96, 97. I was buying PC games, just random ones, not good ones, not anything anyone would care about, but games nonetheless. Like I always bring up Yoda stories. I bought that bad boy. Oh boy. All right. Another game I was really excited to see come out because it's so interesting to Nintendo 64's history is Turok 3, which is also coming to PS4 and PS5 via Night Dive, which was as a port studio that was recently purchased, as you guys might remember, by Atari. I think a very smart acquisition. Turok 3 is actually the fourth Turok game because people will remember that Turok came to N64 in 97. The sequel came out in 98. And then there was that game in 99, Rage Wars. And then Turok 3 came out in 2000. And what was interesting about Turok 3 was that it came out right before the PlayStation 2 came out, which I remember very, very well. I think it came out that September, and then PS2 came out that following October. And of course, Iguana was the studio. They were renamed Acclaim something Austin or whatever later on. But they also did the South Park game. You know what one of their first games were? Do you guys remember the game Arrow the Acrobat?
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah. It was like a SNES and Genesis game. That was their first game. Anyway, Turok 3 coming to PS4 and PS5, Shadow of Oblivion. So that's fun. And then two more things to get through here. A website called opattack.com, discovered a new patent from Sony that I thought would be interesting. And the patent reads in part, quote, "A technique for scaling a multiplayer co-op and competitive computer gaming to dozens or even scores of people playing simultaneously, for example, in a movie theater. The gameplay occurs on the giant screen at the front of the theater. Each person has a controller to control one character or avatar in gameplay space that is projected on the screen. In a theater with 100 people in the seats, for example, 100 respective avatars can appear on the screen, each controlled by a respective different player. So, Dustin, what do you think about this? The idea, people are obviously, specking this out to something that might be more extreme, but the idea of like true multiplayer scale games in, say, a movie theater, that would be pretty interesting. You bring your own controller or something, or maybe you play with your phone.
Yeah.
Sounds like it could be an interesting idea. It reminds me a little bit about the Xbox 360 1 versus 100. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
But doing that in a live theater, like the real 1 versus 100.
Yeah. I think someone was onto this idea a long time ago. This may be a fever dream of mine, but I remember as a kid being at the Carnegie Science Center in Pittsburgh in the planetarium. And there was a thing where each seat had a little controller with 4 buttons, and you could vote on stuff, or there was like quiz games that they would project up on the screen and you would select the buttons. And obviously that's very minimal compared to something that it sounds like Sony's doing. But it's cool to see this idea in a more advanced way, we'll say, something that involves probably a lot deeper control. And I wonder what kind of application could you see theaters having a new avenue where it's like, hey, we don't just do movies, but you can come and play this game with everyone else in the theater, or you have a party or something where you bring everybody to this one spot and play games on a giant screen. That's kind of a neat idea. And I'm sure theaters would love a way to have something that can bring in more revenue outside of just movies and popcorn. So could be onto something with this.
Yeah, I think that there is something to this depending on how it comes out. Anything you want to add, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on, you can't exactly play. My brain immediately went to like 100 people in a theater, and then like the screen is split 100 different
ways, yeah,
which is hilarious. Just like a monitor sized, like a really small, like that's me. And you're all playing Fortnite together in a theater or something. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. This actually brought back like a really old memory for me, where like a friend of mine, who I guess was apparently like, I never thought about it until now, but I guess he's really well to do. His family kind of rented a movie theater, like for his birthday, and we played splits. I remember specifically playing like split screen Combat Evolved in like a movie theater. And I remember that was like it was like 4 players. It was like 4, split 4 ways. And I remember being like, this is fucking nuts that this is even possible, or like how they even allow this. I didn't know that was a thing that you could do. I thought his dad owned the movie theater when I was a kid. I guess it makes more sense that he rented it out. But I don't know. I can't say this has any application for me personally, but I'm curious to see what this would even manifest itself as. Obviously, there's a patent, so it's, who knows if this ever really manifests in any real way. But it's interesting. It's interesting to me that they're thinking about things like this.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff you can do here. You can imagine just time wasting before a movie even begins that's sponsored by PlayStation, where people can pick up controllers that are docked in front of them or something and participate in something on the screen. Or I don't know, there's a bunch of different avenues. Or you could have like the events, such as what you were saying, Dustin, where you could have the party, or you can have just this thing. For some reason in my mind, Fall Guys came to mind. For me. And then there are Modern Warfare 3 beta details, but I'm bored. I don't want to fucking talk about Call of Duty right now. Let's get into the games we're playing instead. I will begin this week, actually. Kamza115 wrote in and said, hello, boys. This one is for Colin. You mentioned last week that you were going to start playing Alan Wake Remastered. What are your thoughts on it so far? I replayed it myself last month to prepare for the sequel, and while I found the story to be weird and an enjoyable mashup of Stephen King and Twin Peaks, the gameplay definitely hasn't aged too well. Moving from point A to point B while killing everything you can in between gets a little stale after a few chapters, especially when Alan has the fitness of an asthmatic who smokes 100 a day. I don't expect this will be a problem in the sequel, as Sam Lake has mentioned looking to the likes of Resident Evil 4 for inspiration. Cheers and enjoy your weekend, lads. So I have been playing Alan Wake. I'm about halfway through it now. I would like to have been a little further along, but just have had some distractions and things to deal with. I love it. I think it's awesome. And I'm disappointed that I kind of I didn't let people dissuade me. I don't want to give them that much power, but there were a lot of people I remember when Alan Wake came out, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's very similar to Shadow Complex or something, where I'm like, oh, I probably should check that game out. It sounds pretty cool. And people are like, the gameplay's not very good. I remember people saying that to me over and over again. I was like, oh, really? All right, I guess I'll just skip it. But I can't say I agree that the gameplay is bad. I actually think the gameplay is surprisingly good, surprisingly fun, especially the way people can talk about it. It's difficult and a little chaotic sometimes. I'm halfway through the game, so I haven't seen everything yet, but I quite like the balance of the flashlight and the various guns and implements you get. And I've been saying about Alan Wake. So as I said earlier on, we're going to, in the show, Hogue and I, and maybe Dagan will sit down and do a whole conversation about Alan Wake when I finish it in preparation for Alan Wake 2. And that will be a Sacred Symbols Plus episode. But I personally have never played a game like this before. And the best way I can compare it is it gives me real Heavy Rain vibes in some weird way. I don't know why. It just does. So I say it's kind of like a Quantic Dream game meets Deadly Premonition. So that definitely that Twin Peaks vibe, no doubt about it. And obviously Deadly Premonition is heavily inspired by Twin Peaks 2, meets some sort of action game, maybe even something like Control, which would make a lot of sense considering who made this game. I said this to Dustin on Sacred Symbols Plus, and just to reiterate, it's like that Shaq quote where it's like, I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game, Alan Wake. Like, I wasn't familiar with your game. I just wasn't familiar with it. I didn't know that it was this compelling and this good. Is it a little weird and campy and chaotic? Yeah, but there's something really unique about it. I've played so many games before and after, and I don't know that I could really stitch it to something. It does feel like something a baby Quantic Dream made with, I don't know, but I love it. I really, really think it's fun and interesting. And I wanted to play it to know if Alan Wake 2 was for me or not, because I don't really know anything about Alan Wake 2, but now I definitely know it is. And I was saying on our episode of Sacred Plus, Dustin, that I got to get to Quantum Break and then get back to Control. However, it was so weird because they were interviewed so we were recording this and Gamescom's going on in the background. And then that night, that after we record, they release some sort of interview they did with someone where they're like, the universe we're working in is Alan Wake and Control. Like, that Quantum Break has nothing to do with it. And I was confused by that because I remember, and I went and looked and found it, there are explicit references to Alan Wake in Quantum Break. Explicit. And of course, I'm pretty sure that Control references Quantum Break as well with the AWE stuff. But I guess maybe there's some sort of, and I'm not positive about this, but some sort of rights issue with Microsoft or whatever, because Microsoft, as far as I understand, owned Alan Wake 2, and I think sold the rights back, or the rights kind of transferred back. Alan Wake's development was really tortured. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Alan Wake was in development for a long time, and there was a huge distance between Max Payne 2 and Alan Wake. It was supposed to be an open world game. You can definitely see signs of that, which is so funny about like the things they were trying to do, but they started to streamline it. So I don't think that their experience with Microsoft was necessarily very positive on that game. And I think that maybe Microsoft was happier to let that go away, but Quantum Break might just be stuck in that space between. But anyway, I was thrilled to hear that, because that doesn't mean I just don't have to go play that, because I want to familiarize myself with everything that really matters to Sam Lake as far as the world they're trying to build. So shout out to Remedy, because the one thing I didn't realize is that, and they don't own Max Payne either. That's Rockstar's, and Rockstar made Max Payne 3. They haven't made a Max Payne game in a long time. But between Alan Wake, at least so far, and Control, which I've always held in really high regard since we reviewed it all the way back in the day, I'm like, damn, Remedy's really good. And I guess I just didn't realize that. It makes me so excited for Alan Wake 2. It makes me so excited to go back and play Control. I never played the DLC for Control. The DLC apparently goes right back to Alan Wake, doesn't it? And I was told by someone that the DLC in Control is like almost necessary for Alan Wake 2, which I wonder if that's true or interesting in the way that they tie together. And I think that's so neat, So I love connected universes where you don't get crazy with the entries to it. It's not like all the things you make fun of all the time, right? It's like Alan Wake and Control, and Alan Wake 2 and Control 2, and they kind of speak to each other. It's kind of like we're going to get with The Messenger and Sea of Stars in a little while. just every so often. So I want to give a shout out to Alan Wake. I love it. I think it's really, really fantastic. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm because I wasn't sure how you would respond to it. I think I thought you would appreciate the writing and like the vibe of it and like what it was trying to do narratively and just like things like that. But I wasn't sure how the gameplay would find you, because I like it too. But I'm also of that era where it's like I play Halo 2 and I feel great about it. You know what I mean? Like Halo 2 feels amazing to me. But like everybody's like, it feels old, and I'm like, all right, yeah, fair enough, maybe. And so a lot of people have that opinion about Alan Wake as well, where it's like I remember having a really good time.
I love the dueling nature of the combat systems. Like it's very straightforward. First of all,
it's not complex. No.
It's very elegant though in using the light and then using your guns and using batteries and kind of letting your light recharge and running around. I was surprised by the gameplay is frustrating sometimes. There are a few parts where I die like a few times. I'm like, come on, man. But the game does give you pretty ample opportunity to kind of spam flares and do things if you really want to. Like I end a chapter and I have 25 flares or something. And I'm like, oh man, I really could have made this a lot easier for me. So it's my own fault as well. But I think that there's something really cool about using the light to weaken them and then shoot them with the gun when they're appropriately weak, and the balance and the batteries, and just totally no upgrades. Just nothing about. It's very Uncharted in that sense. And I appreciate that. I doubt Alan Wake 2 is going to, it'll be an evolved game. Control was much deeper than Alan Wake, of course, too, in that sense, in that gameplay sense. So I'm not saying that that's bad, but I just like how restrained it is. And I think it's authentically scary. Like, I think it's actually pretty tense. There's something, I'm playing with headphones, and there's something like about the aural, AURAL, of like a feeling of running through the woods and the enemies are getting close because you could hear them collapsing on you. The noise is crescendoing. There's something really, really cool about it. And the other thing I love that's really neat is the asymmetrical storytelling, as far as you're gathering the manuscript pages and you can read them, and it spoils the game if you read them. Like it tells you the things that are going to happen. And I thought that was really cool. Because you can warn yourself about things that are happening, or you can just ignore it. And then you get things before you happen. So you get things filled in that you missed or whatever when you were presumably blacked out or whatever. I think it's really, really clever. I had no idea. I wasn't familiar with the game. Alan Wake. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. And of course, I'm playing Rogue Legacy 2 behind the scenes. It's so interesting because I beat the 5th boss a few days ago. The 5th boss has been beaten by 9% of the people that played this game. It's so wild. It's just really tough. And so I'm giving I only have 6 trophies, I think. I've been playing this game for 45 hours, but I'm trying to do one run a day, because I'm trying to just gather money and make my character stronger. And one run can take 90 minutes. So I'm just trying to say, like, all right, I'll put a podcast on and I'll just do one run, and then I'll get an Alan Wake. And that's kind of how I've been balancing things out. Chris, let's go to you. It says here you're playing Bramble the Mountain King. I'll be very interested to hear about this. Wasn't this recommended to you by someone? Didn't this come up recently? I feel like this game came up.
Yeah, I think we might have mentioned it in a broader conversation in regards to something else. I can't exactly remember, but I know that. So I saw it trending a lot on Twitch or YouTube a couple weeks back, where like a lot of, I think, Markiplier and those people were playing it, and I hadn't really seen much of it. I just saw this game going around. I was like, yeah, I'm curious about it maybe. And then I saw like snippets of it that convinced me to give it a go. And it's very, very good. It's an indie kind of, it's very Inside, very Little Nightmares, where it's just kind of atmospheric, light puzzle solving, light platforming, but it's really more about moving through these like really beautiful kind of spaces and having these like really eerie interactions with kind of almost like Aesop fable type stuff. There's like trolls and you feel really small, and it's a really, I don't know, man, it looks beautiful. Like there's certain parts of this game that I'm like this is gorgeous. Like you could take a screenshot of this game and you could hang that up and no one would think anything of it. But I think I don't know. I'm still pretty early. Like I've only encountered like a handful of bosses, and they're not like, this isn't like a Souls-like or anything. Like when I say bosses, it's very much like, very formulaic, like avoid the obvious telegraph, like hide behind rocks to avoid AoE, and it's not hard by any means, but like they do some really creative stuff with like level design, and they do some really interesting stuff with like puzzles and just conceptually with like the enemies that you're fighting. Like there's this one specifically where I'm at right now where it's like basically the Pied Piper, and you have to like avoid the music, otherwise you'll dance yourself to death and stuff like that. It's like, it's very cool. It's very, I don't know, man. I don't know how to describe it. I feel like the best way to really sell this for people is to maybe look up the first couple minutes of it and see if it'll be up your alley, because it's very Little Nightmares, very, very inside, very, very much that type of experience. And it's really cool. I'm pleasantly surprised by Bramble. And there's some really cool creature designs as well. Just like the enemy designs are really, really cool and really surreal. Like there's one level in particular that I don't want to spoil for anybody, but it's like one of the most surreal things I've played in a long time. It reminded me a lot of not in exact execution, but it reminded, like the feeling I got was similar to the ashtray maze in Control, which is like one of my favorite sequences in probably anything. So I recommend it very highly, especially if you like those types of like kind of ethereal, kind of not walking simulator, but kind of like move through a like almost like a haunted house type game. It's very cool.
It has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Actually had 10 stars when I went to.
Oh, really?
Like 10 out of 10. It says 1,500 reviews on when you see it on Google on their module or whatever. So very well received game. And you brought up Little Nightmares. I didn't bring it up, but Little Nightmares 3 was announced at Gamescom. It's interesting because Tarsier did Little Nightmares 1 and 2, the guys that did Little Big Planet on PSP and all that other stuff, but they were purchased by some investment firm, and so they don't own the IP anyway. So Supermassive Games is making Little Nightmares 3, which is strange, and
that is weird.
We'll see how that goes, but they are, of course, one of the last remaining independent studios that has a horror pedigree, although they're not independent anymore either, because Nordisk bought Supermassive, right? So they're doing it, I guess, on a contract basis, which is fine. All right, Dustin, Baldur's Gate 3, you have more to say?
Yes, I've completed Act 1. It took me about 25 hours to complete Act 1, and I've moved on to the next area of the game, and I'm having a fantastic time. It's good and unfortunate at the same time that a new game is coming out today on the day of release of this podcast that will start to divide my time a bit, but I just am continually impressed with the game, having a good time, and I think the thing that's been sticking out to me recently about it is just how I've been pretty consistent trying to not save scum on certain decisions. Sometimes you have to, like I had a situation where I talked to somebody, it didn't go well, and then it resulted in a battle that I tried to fight, and I was like, it's over. I'm not going to win. So you have to reload your save and do that conversation again, but you have the knowledge of like, okay, don't do this because this is going to make them try to fucking kill you. You can't do that. So there is some of that, but other decisions I've made, I was like, oh, that was not the right decision. That was made. I was very ignorant, and that resulted in a bad thing happening. But I've kept those, and it's been, despite a negative thing happening, it's been fun dealing with the messy situations that I've created, and continually enjoying and seeing the dynamics of the characters and how they interact with one another is another area of this game that I'm very impressed with. So I will continue to play it. As I said from the very beginning when I started it, I will have to put it on break for a little bit. But the way I see this game is very much as it's intended as a video game version of D&D. And D&D campaigns can take months and months, where you kind of just pick up where you left off, go for a little bit, put it down for a bit, meet up in another week or two, whatever. And so that's how I'm going to enjoy this game. It may take me months to beat, but that's okay. It's just I'm in for the long haul, no matter how long it takes.
Let me ask you about last week's episode. Did you have to do that art for it?
Oh yeah, dude, it was great. Dude, you sound a little bitter about it. What's going on here?
I wasn't bitter. I was just.
You brought it up twice now.
Yeah, it's disturbing though. I'm looking at it right now, and it's just so I'm specifically disturbed by Chris. You know?
Yeah. Well, when Locke and I were talking, we agreed that Chris was the one that came out the least good.
It was like unholy Chris. You know?
Yeah.
Like totally unholy.
You don't have quite as much customization in that character creator, you know? So
I think it was hilarious.
It's kind of just the best that I think Chris, one of us is a halfling and one is a gnome. So we both kind of got that end of the stick. Colin, I think you're a barbarian in it though.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah.
My favorite episode thumbnail recently is episode 264, Modern Lawfare, which is the one of us as the operators in Call of Duty. I just love it.
Yeah.
I love
with Jim.
I love my face in that one first because I'm just like looking at the camera and smiling. It's just everyone else is dead serious. And Jim, with the ghillie hat on.
But yeah, that was a
very well
good
done.
one.
You're doing a great job with the thumbnails.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. It's like an art in and of itself, isn't it?
Dude, I will say, so I recently did one with Matty where he's in chainmail for Duke. And it made me think of
naturally
a few years ago now where I did one of us as Monty Python characters. And I looked back at it and I was like, wow, my skills have improved because it is still funny. Particularly Chris, if you look back at whatever episode that was that I did the Monty Python thing, Chris looks way more unholy in that than he does in the Baldur's Gate one. Let me tell you. So,
oh man, I don't know what episode it was.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
I'll have to look. I'll bring it up. But yeah, that's some of those early ones. You know, I hadn't found my groove yet. They were funny.
Bad is good sometimes.
But they were kind of a little more. I always because I'll sometimes show a thumbnail to Holly. I'm like, where is this on the scale? It needs to be. I like it a little disturbing because that makes it funny, but you can't go too far. Sometimes though, maybe I've pushed it a little too far.
I disagree. I think you should go as far as possible.
As far as disturbing as.
Yeah.
That's happened a few times with Matty. I'm like, all right, you're asking me for this. So
yeah.
So you're gonna get it and you're gonna fucking like it. And he's always liked it. So
I sent you guys this one this weekend that maybe we can use if something crazy happens.
Yeah, I thought about that. I said, how do I implement this?
Yeah.
It's surely possible in some way.
I have to find joy in little things, you know, like cutting my own hair like that. Gives you a little chuckle. And then you move on with your life. And
then the razor runs out of battery or you you have a power outage and then you're just stuck like that.
I've thought about that so many times. All right, before we move on, I wanted to get this question in here because it's being reviewed and it's out imminently. L. Riz Hubbard wrote in and said, "Greetings, Sacred Sex Symbols. Can we get a final gut check on Armored Core 6? Reviews are in and are very positive. Every time I watch gameplay, I'm blown away by how fun and frenetic the combat looks, but the amount of time that's required to build and customize your mech makes me a little nervous. I've never played an Armored Core game before, and I'm very much like Chris, where I just want to be thrown into the action and don't like to get bogged down by excessive narrative or crunchy micromanagement. I feel his opinion may help me make my own purchasing decision. Cheers." All right, you guys have any thoughts on Armored Core 6? This is not a game I'm going to play. I'm so unfamiliar with Armored Core. It's not. Can't be jumping into the 6th game. Come on. It's too much. It's too many games.
This is one of those that was one of the takes on the list, Colin.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
where are you on this, Dustin? I've been thinking about you with this game because I assume that you are excited about it. It seems the score. Let me be honest with you. From my gut instinct, I'm like, these scores seem outrageous. Like we're not. This is going to be this game is going to be one of the great games of the year. We are really
85. Oh, it's one of the lowest rated.
Oh, we got an 85. I always saw it getting all these 10s and stuff like that from people. I didn't see a Metacritic score. I only saw one of those things like, you know, people tweet where it's like, these are all the scores. I was like, holy moly, man. So, all right. So talk to me. 85. That seems about right. Okay. Stand out on that. It has an 85. There are a decent amount of like Eurogamer gave it a 5 out of 5 and a few other places, you know, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, stuff like that. There are a few lower scores that I find a bit interesting, but of course everyone is entitled to their own opinion. There was one site I saw that's getting some shit because they gave Redfall an 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy.
They're like and they put a plus. The textures are good when they load.
That's
and then it's
crazy.
a negative for texture work on Armored Core. It's like,
holy moly.
Okay, all right.
Microsoft left Redfall for dead, dude. Even when I was watching Destin interview, Phil Spencer at Gamescom, and he said something along the lines of, it wasn't verbatim, but he basically was like, we're really getting going this year. we are already doing 4 or 5 exclusives a year. And then he's like, and he was naming them off, and he was like, Minecraft Legends, and then he's like Redfall. I know a lot of people didn't really like Redfall, but Redfall. And then I was like, Jesus Christ, like, why do you guys keep beating
I think
this
he
up?
said it was even worse. He said, I know some of you don't want to give us credit for that.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Like, damn, dude. Where's that 60 FPS update for that game too, by the way? Like,
Dude, it was on the box. So it must have been pulled at the last minute. It must have been really unstable.
Yeah, because didn't they put like stickers on the box or something?
Right. Yeah, they put like a sticker over it. Yeah, exactly right.
Classic. Yeah, that's nice.
But Armored Core, Armored Core 6.
Yeah.
Free sticker.
I expect the part of the reason on why, not the lower scores, I'm not saying this is wrong or it's a matter of opinion, but Armored Core 6, to my understanding, at least from what I've talked to from Gene about it, and this is a serious thing in general, is that this game is very much, you'll be spending a large amount of time customizing your mechs in menus and just going through getting your customization right for the specific mission. And that's not going to be for everybody. So there's that element. And in addition, this game is just going to be hard as fuck, like insanely difficult. And dude, that's the thing for me, is that I'm very excited. I have my version of the game. I got my shipping, and it's not supposed to be here till Saturday. So I'm a little salty about that. But I am a little concerned just because it's so different. I'm not used to playing a lot of mech games, and it's going to be very difficult. So I may have very well might have a really tough time getting into this game. But everything I've seen, as far as I clicked around, I watched my friend Brad from Easy Allies. They have a video out, which, shout out to them. They didn't score it yet because he wasn't able to play any of the multiplayer, which is kind of important.
That's an old school move. That's a classy move. Yeah.
Respect to Easy Allies for doing that. But I'm really excited, and I'm just very curious on how I'm going to find this game, being that it's so different from other From Software stuff.
Chris, are you going to play Armored Core 6?
Well, I don't know. I will. It's one of those games that I've got too much work to do in the next couple days, and Starfield is right around the corner, and I will not be able. I just can't do it.
What do you guys make of? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was going to ask what you thought of the Starfield leaks, if you guys have seen them.
I haven't seen any of the leaks. I've somehow managed to avoid pretty much everything about it, but I know it's going to be something that at the very least I'm very interested in, and if it is good, will consume me for a while. So for something like Armored Core, which I feel like is going to be like a bit of a learning curve, I want to give myself the time for that. And I think I said in a previous episode that that's like a December game for me. Like around that time is when I'm probably going to jump into Armored Core, because I feel like it won't be a lot of pressure. I feel like it would be a little bit more lenient, but I don't know, not anytime soon. Fair
enough. All right. Well, I'm going to be playing Alan Wake and then Halo 3 for knockback, and then I bought and downloaded Immortals of Avium, so that's going to be next up for me. And hopefully I'll have more thoughts on that in the coming episode. Didn't get very good reviews, but I don't care, because I think it looks fun. All right, my friends, it's time to begin the news. Few important items this week to get through, hardware related. Number one, earlier this year, rumors began to circulate about some sort of remote play device Sony would be releasing this fall, a way to play PS5 without using a TV or your phone or tablet. Called both Q-Lite and Project Q during this rumor period, Sony later confirmed that it had something like this in mind for later in 2023 during its one and only press conference this year so far. And then, as you may recall, the device walked off the factory floor and into a video being circulated on social media, one clearly showing the device itself, though unfinished and running a base Android OS. Now, though, we actually have details, and it seems as if the reaction to the device is mixed. The official name of Sony's remote play device is PlayStation Portal, and as the rumors and leaks indicate, it comes packing an 8-inch LCD screen that will show off your game at 1080p resolution and 60 frames. What happened?
8 inches.
8 inches, dog. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, my friend. As noted in the official announcement, quote, PlayStation Portal is the perfect device for gamers in households where they might need to share their living room or TV, or simply want to play PS5 games in another room of the house. PlayStation Portal will connect remotely to your PS5 over Wi-Fi, so you'll be able to swiftly jump from playing on your PS5 to your PlayStation Portal. PlayStation Portal can play supported games that are installed on your PS5 console and use the DualSense controller. It also includes a 3.5 millimeter audio jack for wired audio. PSVR 2 games, which require the headset, and games that are streamed through PlayStation Plus Premium's cloud streaming are not supported, end quote. The cost of the device is $199.99 USD, or your local equivalent. And while Sony says it will launch later this year, it doesn't have a firm date yet. Pre-orders begin soon. An important note, PlayStation Portal will not be usable if your broadband connection is below 5 megabits per second. And to reiterate, if the game requires anything other than a DualSense or DualShock 4 controller, such as PSVR, PSVR 2, or other peripherals, PlayStation Portal will not function. All right, so we have our device here. Jason H. wrote in and speaks my language. He says, greetings, CDC. Is it me, or does the PlayStation Portal not look like the perfect device for Sundays in the fall? Amen. Jason, I saw this thing and I'm like, this is exactly what I want. Price point, fine for me. And the device's functionality seems reasonable enough, but people have some things to say about it. First off, with the name. Kai wrote in and said, hey, CDC, Project Q has been revealed to be called the PlayStation Portal. I'm sorry. How do you feel about it taking the PSP name in a roundabout way? Do you expect this naming to cause any confusion or any expectation of native handheld gaming among the unaware? Thanks and have a great day. I was curious about this. Before we even get into the device itself, the name. I don't dislike it. In fact, it makes a lot of sense, but it's not only PSP and moniker, but it's Portal. Like PlayStation Portable, PlayStation Portal.
It's close.
It's very close. Like they must not care. They're certainly not doing that intentionally, I don't think, like to say like reminisce of a better time of handheld gaming, but it does seem a little strange. What do you think of the name?
Well, I just, it's a good name. And to me, I think they're not concerned about it because you can't buy a PSP anymore. Like you can't walk into a Best Buy or like a GameStop and get yourself a PSP. So I don't think it's going to, I think they understand that it's not really going to cause much brand confusion, really. Anybody old enough to remember what the PSP was certainly understands that this isn't it. And anybody too young to even know what the PSP was isn't going to be confused by it. So I feel like they're in a pretty good spot to get away with the name. So I don't think it's really a problem.
Dustin, thoughts on the name before we delve deeper?
Yeah, I think the name is awesome. As far as PlayStation Portal, I don't think the PSP connection is. I mean, I don't think it's intentional, and like Chris was saying, there's not really any marketing problem, and they're also not marketing as PSP. Whereas PSP, literally, they had the letters real big, calling it the PSP. That was kind of the move. Whereas I think they're probably going to call this thing the Portal, or that's just what. I don't think we're going to be calling this thing the PSP. So it's just not an issue to me.
All right. So lots and lots of people wrote in about this, and we will go with CT Fire's inquiry. He says, hey, CDC, the first impressions of PlayStation Portal are out. What are your thoughts about it? I think that the $199 price point makes sense for both Sony and consumers. I like what I've been hearing so far about the screen quality, latency, weight, and comfortability. However, I don't like the lack of Bluetooth and cloud streaming. Being forced to use PlayStation Link for a wireless headset seems like an unnecessary proprietary mandate, and the ability to cloud stream seems like it should have been a no-brainer with a new focus on PlayStation 5 cloud streaming for PS Plus Premium subscribers. Have the first impressions changed your opinions? Thanks for putting out great content. So I personally don't care about the Bluetooth thing, but I understand why that would be upsetting. I think that doesn't Sony own Bluetooth? So they don't have to license it, right? Or they're part of the consortium that owns Bluetooth?
I'm pretty sure that's true. Yeah. That sounds right.
I don't know.
I don't know if I'm just saying that only because there's a licensing. I'll look that up when I pass it off, because I could be making that up, but there could just be a brief licensing thing. It's very similar to, remember when Nintendo didn't put the DVD player in the Wii because they really didn't want to pay like the $4 per unit that would have required of them. That's literally the reason, right? So there's this, you're making these in a scale, you want to save your money. I understand that. So I understand that people are a little upset about that. I have no problem plugging, using the 3.5 millimeter jack that's what I use on my controller anyway. I find the wireless headset, like I have one of these downstairs, and I find it like pops in and out sometimes with the Bluetooth thing. I just plug it in. I'm just like, whatever. It's not the end of the world. So that's my opinion. The cloud streaming shit, I think people are totally off base on. I don't understand what they don't understand about. I unless I'm totally off base, Dustin, you tell me. When you're cloud streaming, it's sending it to your PS5, and then you want the PS5 to send it to your Portal. So that's going to add latency to it, isn't it?
Well, I think
So it's not like a native thing where I think people are saying like, why would you make a device that would only speak to PlayStation Premium? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't. They're making a lo-fi second screen. Like, what do people want from it? It's going to reflect what's on your console. You know,
right.
I think that the reason that they're not supporting streaming, in my opinion, must have something to do with the quality of the play, because there has to be some sort of loss when you're sending it from the PS5 over Wi-Fi to your device, right? And that's going to be compounded if it's also sending something from the cloud and not natively from the PS5. Am I wrong about that?
That's not the request, though. The request is that you would be able to get your PlayStation Plus streamed games not from the cloud to your PlayStation to the portal, but directly from the cloud to the portal. So you're not double streaming it.
Yeah, I understand that, but that seems there's only 6.5 or 7 million people that are at PlayStation Premium level. You know, so they would be making a device just for them, basically, then, or at least with that functionality. I don't know. That seems like another thing, in my opinion, than what they're trying to do here.
I think that particularly because we saw those leaks where it ran Android, I'm very curious about I know that it's basically just a thing to stream your PlayStation, but I'm wondering, is there any kind of like UI when you turn it on? Do you see anything, or is this just like a button that's like connect to PlayStation or something like that? Because I think that that's where there was some desire that's like, would you be able to just stream stuff? Since Sony is putting a lot more effort into their cloud streaming stuff, then I think that there is a logical conclusion. It's like, okay, well, you're putting a lot of effort into that. Why wouldn't you just let this thing remove the PlayStation as the barrier? But there is an argument that PlayStation, they still want... They're not going the full Xbox route where it's like, you don't need to own an Xbox to be part of our ecosystem through cloud. I think that Sony still very much wants you to own a PlayStation 5 and be able to use the cloud stuff. So, because in theory, if it did do that, then you could just use this device, own PlayStation Plus, and never own a PlayStation. Because if their streaming was good enough, then it would go cloud to the portal. And I don't think PlayStation wants that. So, and like you said, I think that just the overall intent of the device is meant to be the portal to your PlayStation 5 specifically. Real quick, one comment about the Bluetooth, Colin. I'm curious, and I know, Chris, this was one of the areas that you thought was kind of egregious about this. I'm kind of two minds about the Bluetooth aspect, in that the fact that they're saying, hey, if you want to use this thing, if you want to use wireless, you have to use one of our two devices that use this PlayStation Link or whatever.
Yeah.
I get that feels shitty. In some way, though, from my experience using specifically Bluetooth with gaming, if it doesn't have like a special, USB dongle or something like that where it uses some kind of proprietary connection, Bluetooth has a tendency to have latency, and so I can imagine them. And I know this is like the corporate defender aspect, but I'm just thinking from a device standpoint. It's like, okay, we're already streaming something that could have some level of latency, and then you want to add Bluetooth on top of that, where the audio will be even more latency from that disconnect there. I could understand them saying like, yeah, if it's going to be wireless, we want to make sure it's our solution that sounds pretty interesting, that we'll get into under the next news item, that is lossless and specifically designed around low latency. I can understand that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's not so much Bluetooth that bothers me. It's the price point for what it's capable of doing. Like I personally, I just think $200 for a device that does specifically one thing and one thing only is just I feel like you're better off just buying like a phone at that point. Like I don't even know what to say.
Well, wait, hold on. Like a phone, because like a phone's a lot more than $200.
No, but you could buy.
I'm curious.
What I'm saying is like you could literally buy a used phone that you don't even need to have like a plan connected to it. You could buy a used phone like somewhere, put a backbone on it, not even with a backbone, but you can stream PlayStation, you can stream Xbox, you can stream everything. So like to me, if like the point is like this is going to stream stuff, there are cheaper entryways into that exact ecosystem with far more functionality and purpose than what this thing does. Like, because I remember when we were talking about the Q Lite initially, at when we were talking about like how much this would be, and we kind of guessed around like maybe like 100, 150. So like to me, like 200 is fucking. I mean, I'm sure for some people they'll find a reason to use it. Like obviously, like for Colin with like sports and stuff, like Sundays, like I get it. And also like if you got like a big family or whatever, and you have like a lot of people living in your place and you can't use your TV, I get that use case. But for me, as somebody who like doesn't have any of these problems, who likes to fuck around with new technology, the price point is just like it's simply a little bit too much for what it's capable of doing. For my use case.
To me, I feel like the price, again, I'm not much of an electronics person, obviously, and we always make fun of me being very lo-fi with my basic SE phone and watch and all of that for Apple, but $200 seems kind of appropriate when you think about it. DualSense is what, $70 or $80 itself? And then now that it's like a new boutique version of it with a huge 8-inch screen in the middle of it. I'm not saying it's like the most technical screen in the world, but I just, I don't know. I don't. The reaction to this I find a little surprising. It seemed very negative at first, and then I started digging into the comments, Push Square, PlayStation blog, and everything. And there's quite a few people that are actually pretty excited about it. And
yeah, I mean, good.
So I think you're right. It is about use case, but I look at this and I'm like, this is awesome. This is exactly what I need. It's so funny because we're recording this on a Thursday, as we always do. Yesterday was the first presidential debate for the GOP.
Oh, really?
And I wanted to play Alan Wake, and I was remarking to Mike, I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, I probably wouldn't see. The thing is that I probably wouldn't even play a game like Alan Wake on it, but I would play like a role playing game or one of the many more lo-fi,
like Rogue Legacy.
Yeah, even Rogue Legacy would be interesting on it. Maybe a little too touchy for me on that. But I'm thinking like I played a lot of Trails of Cold Steel on my phone with the Backbone. That was totally fine. And I would find something to play in those moments. I guess what I'm saying is it was so funny to watch that debate. And then Trump gave this thing with Tucker Carlson. I wanted to listen to all this stuff to kind of familiarize myself with all of it. And I'm like, damn, this would just be the perfect time to have an earbud in my ear listening to this stupid debate and playing, a game like Slay the Spire or something. That was another game I played constantly on my Backbone. So I should be clear that I don't think I visualized for me anyway, the PlayStation Portal as something where I'm going to go, oh, I'm going to play Horizon on this thing, or I'm going to play even something like Alan Wake. The higher fidelity, twitchier, whatever games I'm going to leave for TV, but there's always something turn-based or slower or less reactive for me to play because I play a lot of that kind of shit. So again, it's the specific use case. That's why I started out earlier with Jason H saying, is it not the perfect device for Sundays in the fall? I'm like, yes, you totally get it. For people like us, it is a very specific use case. I think not catering to a niche in PlayStation Plus Premium, and maybe focusing on cloud with a different device, or in the future with something more ubiquitous, maybe even something like we keep saying, the vaunted portable PlayStation 4, which is just what I want. I just keep making the case for it. They can keep the PS4 alive theoretically forever, right? And then have it running things off the cloud if they want, or directly to the device, which these are just much more expensive propositions. I just think for $200, I think it's perfect. Or not perfect, but it's very, very good. I will say, to answer the question before, Bluetooth was developed by Ericsson. Ericsson, of course, was famously partnered with Sony, which is why I guess I got those confused. They were, Sony Ericsson was a huge thing, I think, especially in Europe. But there is a consortium of people that run the Bluetooth kind of. Actually, I think I'm reading it now. There's like 700 members or whatever, the membership directory, and Sony is an associate to that, not an adopter. Actually, Microsoft is on the board, Lenovo, a bunch of other companies. So they would have had to probably pay something for that. Just to tie that loose end up. All right, what else do we have here? Actually, no, I don't want to get into that yet. All right, so before we move on, let's just segment it all out. We heard pretty extensively, Chris, what you felt about the price. Dustin, where are you on the price specifically?
I think the price is, all things considered, with inflation right now, it's not that bad. It's definitely still in the premium device category, but as we've seen with the Elite controller, what is it called? The Edge the PlayStation Edging controller, that $200 is no problem for a lot of people in this ecosystem that want something more premium. And I think that I understand what you're saying, Chris, about there being a cheaper option, but this being an all-in-one package, think about like an 8-inch screen, which is going to be a lot bigger than the phone. Yeah. And it is a fully complete DualSense and has all the DualSense features. So a DualSense controller is $70 too. This is a pretty easy one and done solution for that. So I think the price point is, as long as this thing does what it says it does, which I know sounds funny just saying it like that, but this is the thing for me. I know what you mean. With any of these streaming devices is that I always read about them and I see people talk about them and they're like, oh, I don't notice any latency, or, oh, the latency is very minimal. I'm very sensitive to these types of things.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, me too.
It's the autism.
It has to be or something. Yeah. I can't play even like the slower games. I know it's like, oh yeah, a game like an RPG totally playable with the latency. It still kind of bothers me in the back of my mind where I'm like, I want games to feel quick and responsive. The people that previewed this, like IGN, they said they didn't notice any latency, but I'm like, it's in their demo scenario where it's like they have probably the best router available. It's not connected to 12 different devices like yours at home isn't. So for me, it's if the price is $200 and it really is low latency, it's to the point where it's unnoticeable, then yes, that sounds amazing. But yeah, if that's not the case, then it's not worth $100. It's not worth anything to me because that's it lives or dies by that for me.
Yeah, that is kind of the thing. Like, so much of its functionality is so dependent on things that don't have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? It's not like the PSP or the Steam Deck, which it's all dependent on itself. It's this thing that kind of relies on your home internet infrastructure to even serve the purpose that it's built for. It might not even be like you could get one that works perfectly fine, but if your home system is fucked, then it's entirely purposeless. And I guess to me, like, it is in that it's in that area of, a premium device. But to me, a device that exclusively streams is inherently unpremium because like streaming is just not a premium experience. It's inherently like a lesser than, you know what I mean? And I get it. Right. It's fine. It's like, it's for a very specific use case that just simply doesn't speak to me as much. Especially, I've been very spoiled with the Steam Deck, which, by the way, can run Spider-Man Miles Morales perfectly.
You can also stream to your PlayStation 5 to your deck.
I haven't tried that yet, but and also, like, I don't know. I guess I'm more okay with, like, if for whatever reason I can't use my TV for something, I'm all right with that break. You know what I mean? I'm all right to step away. Like, I never got into mobile gaming because I don't like the idea of my games following me everywhere. Like I like the idea that, like, if I'm going to play a game, I have to sit down and actively do it, as opposed to, like, having this thing constantly attached. It's almost like social media, how I feel about social media, where it's just this thing that's attached to me forever, that follows me everywhere I go. So I guess it is really more of like a preference thing, but I do think that it's really going to depend on people's internet. And, like, I'm very curious about how it's going to function in people's homes once it's out there in the wild, because, like, dude, the average home now, like, even just a single person, like, I have so many. As an individual, I have so many devices hooked up to my internet wirelessly at any given time. It would have made my entire household in 2006 look hilarious by comparison. So we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm curious. I would like to try it out, but I don't know. It's 200 for me is too much for the fact that I don't have any of the use cases that would require something like this.
I wonder if you'll be able to go into like a Best Buy or something and just have it on attached to something where you can just hold it.
Yeah, I'm curious. I am curious about how it feels as well. Like the sturdiness, the build quality, that's also, those are lesser concerns, because I'm sure that's going to be great. But
I would have loved an OLED, but I know they wanted to kind of keep the price down. I mean, that indicates that maybe they just, I don't know. I'm just so interested.
Why keep the price down if it's a premium? thing, though. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the thing where it's like, it feels like they're just not going hard enough on it.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, there's something to that. I just wonder, don't you wonder? I mean, at least I do. I'm just so curious what their long-term, even midterm plans are for handheld devices. And I'm not talking about a new Vita or PSP. I'm just talking about this sort of thing. Like, where are you going to go with this? What is Nintendo interesting to you at all? The success they're finding. Do they want to see Nintendo do it again before they say like this is a thing and not another Nintendo-centric black hole where they do it really well? And I think that there's some hope for something cooler than the Portal. I just think we're never going to get a real handheld from them again. And that's probably not a shame for some people. It just doesn't make any sense, really. I was really just thinking about it at brass tacks. The Vita was kind of perfect in a sense because it could do PS3 games and did. There were a lot of games that were released on both of them. And it wasn't quite as powerful as PS3, but it could replicate PS3, and it felt kind of paired up with it very well. And that was a very sophisticated handheld device. I think consoles are just spreading themselves out from the potential of affordable consumer level handheld devices that it's going to seem like we're already seeing it with Switch to a degree. It just doesn't really matter, where games are just really lo-fi. I was watching Micah pretty extensively actually playing Pikmin 4, which is awesome. I think Pikmin's so cool, and it was very adorable and cute, but I was just looking at it, I'm like, wow, it's so you could just tell it's a PS4 game, or like not even really, even though there's like beautiful effects and lighting and all of this. And you wonder what they could do with more power, but they just simply don't need it. And I think Sony looks at their proposition differently because their games are so AAA from a graphical point of view. And I think that they're afraid of abandoning that. And they abandoned that pretty quickly during the Vita era. So that's why I just think the portable PS4, do it. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say they definitely kind of established that bar for themselves. So it's a lot harder for them to walk that back.
Yeah, I agree.
Than it would be for anybody else.
Dustin, are you going to buy this thing?
I'm curious. I really want to know how it works in my house, but I'm like Chris, where I just don't have that kind of use case where between Holly and I, when she's playing games, it's almost always on Switch, and she has no problem watching YouTube on her phone or something like that. Like we're very rarely competing for the TV, and I don't play games in bed either. So I just don't personally have a use case where I think it's cool, and I think that will be useful to a lot of people, particularly people that are competing for a screen, want to play in different rooms where their PlayStation is. I can't justify buying it with no use case.
All right, we'll keep an eye out for PlayStation Portal. No release date, but they did verify later this year there'll be pre-orders soon, and we'll let you know when. Okay, number 2. In addition to PlayStation Portal, 2 other PlayStation-aligned audio devices were variously rumored and later confirmed over the course of the past few months. You'll recall that the rumors noted Sony was working on a new generation of audio headset as well as a pair of earbuds, and both of these rumors were confirmed by Jim Ryan at the most recent PlayStation Showcase. And like Portal, we now have more information about these devices. The headset is called the Pulse Elite wireless headset, while the earbuds are called the Pulse Explorer. First, the headset, as described by Sony, quote, Pulse Elite is our new wireless headset that offers lossless audio and comes with a retractable boom mic and AI-enhanced noise rejection capable of filtering background sounds. A charging hanger is also included with the product for a convenient charging and storage option, end quote. Pulse Elite will cost $149.99 USD or your local equivalent, and there's no word on a release date nor when pre-orders will go live. The same is true for Pulse Explorer, described as such, quote, Pulse Explorer is our first set of wireless earbuds, providing a premium portable audio experience with dual microphones and AI-enhanced noise rejection capable of filtering background sounds. It also offers lossless audio and comes with a charging case, end quote. The earbuds will cost $199.99 or your local equivalent, and we're similarly left without a release date or pre-order timing here. Sony notes that both devices use so-called planar magnetic drivers. We talked about this a little earlier, actually, with the Audeze nuts. Delivering, quote, an audiophile level listening experience normally found in premium headphones for professional sound engineers, end quote. And both leverage a technology called PlayStation Link, which, quote, delivers low latency, lossless audio and easy switching between multiple PlayStation Link hosts, such as a PS5 with a USB adapter and PlayStation Portal, end quote. To be clear, PlayStation Link will require a separate standalone device that can be used on both PS5 and PC and Mac. allowing these audio solutions to be utilized on those platforms too. Dustin, I was hoping you can help explain this PlayStation Link thing to me, because they didn't really go into this, and I don't know if this is a Vita memory card style. We're not going to talk about this thing for a little while, but doesn't it sound like there's something else, the PlayStation Link, which they didn't really outline? Then I was starting to read things about it. I don't know. I haven't looked at it if they've released any clarifications. Do you know anything?
It sounds like, because it said it has some kind of dongle like the normal Pulse headphones, and this is, so let me restart. I'm curious what audiophiles are going to think of this in particular, because when I saw that it said true lossless wireless audio, I thought, that's interesting. Has anyone else really done that? And so just looking, a quick Google search, it seems like not very many people are doing any kind of lossless wireless audio. This is actually but very cutting edge to my understanding. So the fact that, so I guess to put this into perspective, anytime you listen to Bluetooth, it's going to be somewhat compressed in order for it to be wireless. You're not getting the full range of the sound technically. But when you listen to something that's lossless, then that means you're not losing any kind of quality. It's not being compressed at all through, the wireless signal. So the fact that they're doing that is pretty interesting. And the fact, as I mentioned earlier, Bluetooth has a lot of latency. So they're doing that in a apparently, very, very high quality, low latency. So there could be something pretty interesting about both the headphones and the earbuds. So I'm curious for the audiophiles, like the hardcore ones in the audience, let us know about this, the lossless wireless aspect in particular. I know for me, it starts to get to a point of splitting hairs where I've tried to listen to the difference between if you listen to something on Bluetooth or you listen to something wired plugged into your computer where it's not going to be lossless. There is a difference, but it's not going to be anything, I think, transformative. I'm sure there's some people that, will live and die by the lossless aspect, but I don't necessarily think it's that huge of a deal. It's more to me about the latency aspect. That sounds like it would probably be a much better experience.
I'm reading here. I was just Googling around because I'm still confused about the PlayStation Link aspect. And it says in the PlayStation blog, quote, when using Pulse Elite and Pulse Explore with PS5, the USB adapter that's included with each headset and earbuds is required for PlayStation Link. The PlayStation Link USB adapter will also be sold separately as a standalone item and can be used for PC and Mac, so players can connect Pulse Elite or Pulse Explore to explore the same lossless and low latency audio. It's just written so strange,
What do you think? Because I feel like that makes sense to me. Where it's the idea.
So is it saying that what comes with those headsets will work now, but you can also buy them for your older headsets to have that connection to? Yeah, go ahead.
The impression I get is that you buy it and it comes with one dongle. Can I just say I hate the word dongle?
Yeah, it's terrible. It's truly unfortunate.
I don't know what other word to use. So it comes with one dongle, right?
Word.
And you plug that, and the idea is that you keep that on your PlayStation 5. But if you want to also use the PlayStation Link lossless audio technology or whatever on your computer, then you can go and you can buy another dongle. And the idea is that it's very easy to switch between the two, that you won't need to lug this dongle around. How many times we got to say that? So it's just supposed to make it easier to switch between devices.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I'm just a little,
Like for you, if you got this, you use the headphones both on your PC and on your PlayStation. So the idea is that you would buy the headphones and then buy an additional dongle. And then when you wanted to come up here and record, you would just reconnect them. To reconnect it to your PC instead of having to unplug it from your PS5 and take it upstairs.
I get it. I got you. Yeah, that's nice, I guess. Are any of you or either of you interested in buying either of these devices? I'm happy with my headphones, whatever these are. Pulse headset.
Yeah. I'm not really in the market for new headphones. Like I've had Sony XM, I don't know, 1 million, whatever the hell they're called.
Yeah.
For a while, and they've served me fairly well. These wired ones are pretty perfect for what I have to use here. I don't need any. Dude, I used to buy like a lot of headphones. I used to be like an absolute asshole. I would have like a different pair for like every week of the month or something. Like it was just obnoxious. And I was like, I gotta stop doing it. Because I would buy these like really nice headphones, like several $100 headphones, and then I would like go to a bar and then I would forget them, and then I'd be like so fucking angry that that happened at least 3 times. I'm like, I can't do this. This is just like a tremendous way. So I bought the Sony XM whatever, and then I've been very careful to staple them to me, basically. Like I did never go anywhere without them. And they're perfect, so I don't really need anything new. I also don't like playing games with headphones on, personally.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris, in that I have these and I use these for Sacred, and if I need an over-the-ear experience, I just use these. And then I have my AirPods Pro, which these are amazing.
AirPod Bros.
Dude, the AirPods, these are a 10 out of 10 device. Let me tell you, they're expensive, but I can never, when it comes to just using earbuds, they're so convenient. They automatically connect to your phone. I'll start using my laptop and it immediately knows to switch it. It's just, dude, it's that Apple ecosystem, man. It's nice. So yeah, I don't need, and when I'm playing my PlayStation, it's all about the surround sound for me.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I just don't need it.
I like playing with earphones. I like playing with headphones personally. Yeah. I'm sorry, Chris, what did you say?
Well, I think it's because I wear headphones so fucking much because I'm like editing and all the podcasting that like when I'm playing a game, I want to relax and I don't want to have something squeezing my head, even if it's lightly. Like I just want to sit there and enjoy my unencumbered experience. But
all right, number 3, Dustin. This one's for me and you. Let's celebrate.
Okay. Let's do it.
While we discussed quite a few new games coming to PS5 and PS4 in the coming months earlier in the show, it seemed appropriate to give a proper write-up to perhaps the most interesting title of them all in this pack, Granblue Fantasy Relink. First and foremost is this. Relink is coming to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 on February 1st, early in 2024. This is significant news in and of itself because this action RPG has been without a release date for literally years. Indeed, if you could believe it, it was actually revealed all the way back in the summer of 2016. At that time called Granblue Fantasy Project Relink, and under development primarily at Japanese studio Platinum Games, best known for their Bayonetta series, games like Mad World, Vanquish, and The Wonderful 101, and more recently hit or misses like Nier Automata, a couple of Star Fox games, and Astral Chain for Nintendo, and a little Square Enix published ditty known as Babylon's Fall. By 2019, though, publisher Cygames took the game internal and ever since then have been toiling away on it. As the name suggests, Relink is part of the Granblue Fantasy series, a mega popular Japanese MMORPG played by more than 10 million people a year out from its initial launch in 2014. And though technically never fully localized for external audiences, it can be played in English on a browser right this very second. Relink is a single-player spin-off that does allow for up to 4 players in co-op, but unlike its source material, it's not an MMO at all. This will mark developer Cygames' biggest console launch in their history, and indeed, virtually all of their most notable hits are on iOS and Android, primarily but not exclusively in Japan, with perhaps their biggest global success to date, the 2016 digital card game Shadowverse, which still runs today. And indeed, Relink is the second Granblue Fantasy spin-off, with the Arc System Works developed fighting game Granblue Fantasy Versus launching on PS4 in 2020. The company continues to release more console games outside of Granblue Fantasy as well, primarily in the form of 2022 action RPG Little Noah Scion of Paradise on PS4, as well as a long-in-development action RPG for PS4 Project Awakening, which was likewise announced in 2016, last heard of in 2019, and presumably canceled, or in some other form of development hell as we speak. Dustin, I wanted to just throw this out there because this game, people have asked about this game for so many years, going back before I even did the show to my previous PlayStation podcast. It's pretty incredible to finally have a release date for it. You have any thoughts? I think this game looks pretty cool, actually.
I'm excited. We talked about it on an episode of Sacred Symbols Plus, the outlining 2023. I'm excited. I'm so deflated because I just connected the dots that this comes out the day before Persona 3 Remake. So that's a bit deflating for me because the Persona 3 Remake is going to take priority to this. But that being said, I think this game looks great. I love how colorful it is, in particular, looking at the trailer. It's just a very, very colorful game with really beautiful anime style graphics. And also I love action RPGs as well. Just like, I love both turn-based and action RPGs. So this, it's been a very long time coming and I'm excited to check it out. I'm intrigued in just that. I'm looking at the Granblue Fantasy Relink website right now. And at the bottom, it says players 1, but online 1 through 4. So a little multiplayer in there as well. So I'm not sure what that's about. But yeah, I don't know much about Granblue Fantasy as a series. As you mentioned in the write-up, a lot of it's mobile. And there was that Arc System Works fighting game recently as well. So I'm going to have to do some research and find out if there's anything I need to do to become familiarized with this world. But I'm guessing they're probably going to design it for anybody, to just someone like Chris to hop in, because I can tell this game 100% appealing to him.
Chris will have his waifu lined up before very long.
Yeah.
That would typically be a game for earlier in the show and our smaller news items, but it's a long time coming with that one, man. It really, really is. When I saw that, I was like, wow, you almost never expected it to occur at all. It was announced 7 or 8 years ago. It's just crazy. This next piece of news, I'm very curious to get your guys' take on. Number 4, what in the world is going on at Bioware? A recent blog post from the company makes it seem like the once vaunted Electronic Arts' own team continues to rest on shaky ground. The letter penned by BioWare's general manager, Gary McKay, makes a surprising announcement. BioWare is letting about 50 of its people go. He writes in part, quote, "In order to meet the needs of our upcoming projects, continue to hold ourselves to the highest standard of quality, and ensure BioWare can continue to thrive in an industry that's rapidly evolving, we must shift towards a more agile and more focused studio. It will allow our developers to iterate quickly, unlock more creativity, and form a clear vision of what we're building before development ramps up. To achieve this, we find ourselves in a position where change is not only necessary but unavoidable. As difficult as this is to say, rethinking our approach to development inevitably means reorganizing our team to match the studio's changing needs," end quote. He later continues, quote, "After much consideration and careful planning, we have built a long-term vision that will preserve the health of the studio and better enable us to do what we do best: create exceptional story-driven single-player experiences filled with vast worlds and rich characters. This vision balances the current needs of the studio, namely ensuring Dragon Age Dreadwolf is an outstanding game, with its future, including the success of the next Mass Effect," end quote. Thus, BioWare continues on Dreadwolf's continued development, the 4th Dragon Age game since the series launched in 2010, a game in some sort of development for at least 8 years, going back to 2015. The version of the game being worked on now is, by most accounts, the 3rd version of the game, with the 2nd being some sort of live service inspired by BioWare's most notable failure, Anthem. Indeed, the team working on the game now, from leadership to the trenches, is pretty much entirely different than it was just a few years ago. And as for the next Mass Effect, it remains in pre-production, according to BioWare, meaning it's generously aiming for launch no sooner than maybe 2028, and likely later. BioWare, founded in 1995 and focused at first on PC, was purchased outright by EA in 2007 in prelude to the launch of the original Mass Effect. The deal cost nearly $800 million. BioWare's most beloved games include the original Baldur's Gate from 1998 and its 2000 sequel, 2002's Neverwinter Nights, 2003's KOTOR, the Mass Effect trilogy, and its Dragon Age trilogy too. More recent duds include 2017's Mass Effect Andromeda and 2019's Anthem. Andrew Dickens wrote in and said, "Hey guys, BioWare have announced the loss of around 50 members of staff, some pretty talented ones as well by the sounds of it. For instance, Mary Kirby, who has been with Dragon Age since the beginning, for example. I know the writing has been on the wall for some time with BioWare, but with their last noteworthy game 9 years ago and their future projects nowhere in sight, is there any confidence left in this beleaguered studio?" Chris, where do you stand on what's going on with BioWare? It looks like 50 layoffs, 50 people laid off, I should say. Dreadwolf in some sort of development still. Mass Effect still in pre-production.
Yeah.
So not looking great for this once storied team that I'm pretty sure EA has only kept alive because it knows it will pay such an optical price if it shut BioWare down.
Yeah, I think I don't think you're that wrong on that. I think it really kind of puts it in perspective, because I mean, BioWare to me has really only had relevance into Mass Effect. Really, like personally, that's the only real relevance. But and KOTOR to a lesser extent. I got into KOTOR way later. But seeing, like, I don't know, those original Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights and just kind of spread out like that, and compared to, you know, Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, and now wherever they are with this, it's really fucking depressing to see them fall in this way. I don't know what to make of any of this. I don't imagine that Dragon Age is in a good position at the moment. I don't even know what to say about Mass Effect. It's so weird that we heard about Mass Effect so long ago now. Like this new version. Like when was the last? Didn't they tease something?
Did
like
they say Mass Effect will continue or something like that?
Yeah, they did like a Marvel post credits scene type thing, or like Mass Effect will continue, and that was like what 2 years ago or something. Some bizarre amount of time ago for them to still be in pre-production for it. I don't know, man. BioWare's only BioWare in name only now.
Totally. I totally agree. I think that they experienced I have to go and I wouldn't do this. It's too much time, but you could run some sort of macro probably on Moby Games and LinkedIn and whatever. And they must have shed so much of their talent. People want to make games, and people that made Mass Effect and the likes of the early Dragon Age games, etc., were going to be in pretty high demand anyway. And they also lost some of their talent by spinning off the MMO stuff as well, because some of the people that were working on that are going to the new studio that are going to be monitoring that, which was really kind of low key their best game for a while, or at least their most secure game. Dustin, where are you on this, on BioWare's present and future? I really think it's time to just let go of Mass Effect. Why do we even need Mass Effect? Mass Effect has been gone. I mean, if you don't count Andromeda, Mass Effect ended in 2012. Like, why not just let it be? Why do we need to continue this? They're not capable of doing all of this stuff at once. Focus on Dragon Age if you're going to focus on anything. Try to take advantage of that Baldur's Gate energy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the situation that we've brought up before about how the developers, the name remains the same, but the people within change. Like the band that no longer has any of the original members. Is it still the same band? Is BioWare still BioWare? And I feel like I'm kind of at the point where I've already mourned the loss of BioWare around the time where it's like, okay, we gave them the one with Andromeda, though that was the off one. And then after Anthem, I was like, well, they're kind of done for me. They're going to have to really prove themselves that they're still the amazing team that made all these classic games. But it seems like they can't even get this game together with Dragon Age that's just been in development for so long. And it's worth pointing out. Absolutely. It sucks when people lose their jobs, and it's, we hate to hear stuff like that, but what's going on here? What's been going on here for so long now? What's been going on at the studio? What is happening that they can't release games? What is happening that is it, with Anthem and EA coming in and making their single player RPG game, try to make a Destiny-like game without even looking at the successes and failures of Destiny. It just doesn't make any sense. And maybe you're right, Colin, that some of this does have to do with, like, if they weren't BioWare, they would be shut down by now, because they just continually in their public releases fail with Mass Effect, Andromeda, and Anthem. And then privately in games that haven't even been released, has been, Dragon Age been rebooted so many times now, and Mass Effect's not even in production yet. It's in pre-production. It's like, what is going on? So yeah, it's unfortunate, and I feel bad. And it sucks that BioWare is no longer BioWare, but I think that it's time for people to lower their expectations and keep them lowered until proven otherwise.
Yeah. Well said. I think that they're running on fumes, and it's pretty obvious. I think that there's some sort of urgency, no doubt, with Dragon Age, not because EA necessarily needs it, but because there's probably some sort of situation to take advantage of with Dragon Age right now, with Baldur's Gate being what it is and CRPGs really coming to the mainstream in the forefront in a way that they really haven't before. Dragon Age might be more important to them than ever, and this could be a reactionary sort of thing. Like, we really got to worry about what we're doing with this game. We got to finish whatever we're doing with this game. And that might be as simple as that. But I think that after listen, we all know EA has been much more ruthless with studios than they are with being with BioWare. And,
oh yeah, easily. Yeah.
And so there's got to be a reason for that. And I don't think the reason is that there's something uniquely special about Dragon Age and Mass Effect. I don't believe that at all. I believe that I believe it closes the loop in some way of their story from 2007 of them buying the studio, and then all these studios kind of going to shit under them, and them trying to prove that it won't happen with this one too. And it hasn't happened, and it can't happen. Then I'm sure recruiting to Bioware is not necessarily a difficult thing, but it is kind of complicated by being in Edmonton primarily. And they obviously have a Texas-based satellite, but I don't know. It's sad because Bioware has been an important player and a really dynamic and an interesting player. And they're a great reminder. I mean, Anthem aside, which was something new and an attempt at something new, it's like you're resting on your laurels of Dragon Age and Mass Effect. You got to move on. The choice should have been to move on. And so now they're stuck to this, but I think that they're in a really advantageous position with Dragon Age if it could be good, because look at Baldur's Gate. I mean, if they could deliver something like that in their own way, I think they're being great shape.
That's a big if though, man.
Yeah, sure.
Like, that's kind of the thing where it's so weird to imagine that there would be a time where BioWare is one of the most, or I guess one of the least compelling studios in EA's portfolio, like the studio that's doing like you have Respawn kind of killing it. Even something like Wild Hearts, which is like interesting. You have Motive with Dead Space and whatever it is they're working on. Obviously FIFA and the sports games are going strong. It's weird to imagine that BioWare is like in the worst position of any of their studios, really. That's like a weird, like that would have seemed impossible a while ago.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I'm sure they got their money out of BioWare, but I don't know. EA really misread the tea leaves with what they should do with them. Not only from spinning the BioWare name off into these different teams, like the Montreal team and all these different things that kind of gave us the abomination of Andromeda, but also just being like, make this, or let them kind of hang themselves with Anthem if that's really what happened, where they really wanted to make that game. Just totally, you have to have more vision than to start developing games and then take 5 years to get there to the end and base it on your presumptions about the market at that time. It's too dangerous. That's why single player gaming is in some way safer, because it's always going to exist. If you can just accept that there's never going to be a Fortnite single player game, but you can have a Baldur's Gate 3, which I think sold 5, 6, 7 million copies on PC already, which is crazy. And will sell millions more when it comes to PlayStation, and it's going to come to Xbox. They actually dropped the parity clause. Did you see that for Baldur's Gate on Xbox? Very interesting. That's the little domino. What's going to be the big domino, Dustin? I don't know.
Yeah.
Dustin becomes president of the United States. Who knows?
Goodness. Wow. That would be something. I saw that they got rid of that. It was just so, because didn't they? I saw something they were like sending Microsoft engineers to help them with it. And apparently they're just like, yeah, it's not possible. Like they just can't, even Microsoft engineers like, yeah, we can't get split screen. What is it with Microsoft and split screen? Seems that's like their Achilles heel.
Because they're expected to, it's because they're still expected to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of it, like it's, I don't know, like Halo had that problem too, where like I'm pretty sure like the Halo Infinite split screen campaign was cut because it couldn't run on Series X, or Series S, which is like, hey, can you do that now? Can you get that in now that it doesn't matter? Now that it's like you can cut that clause in the middle where it's like, Series S can do it, doesn't have to work on that. Maybe think about that.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting move, because there's obviously a line that they're willing to cross to say like, okay, no, we'll let this go, because they want those sales naturally of Baldur's Gate. It's a huge game. They're going to make a lot of money on it. And they want that accessible to their player base, obviously. But how can they in good conscience now go to their first party and be like, okay, now isn't there a problem with Forza right now with split screen not being in at launch and stuff like that, as they got to figure all that stuff out? And why? So they're going to go to Turn 10, who they own, and say like, oh no, but you guys gotta make that
weird.
Work. I just think this is the first domino of the Series S being decoupled in some way from the Series X, which is going to be necessary, I think, at some point. I think, I don't know that there's a lot of wisdom in that console, to be honest. I think that it seemed that way, but I think that lacked vision.
I don't know, man. I think it's fine. I just think it needed to be understood what it was doing. Like, I really think if they made it clear that like, hey, this is a budget console, it's going to be able to run your stuff, but you're going to lose some features that may or may not be important to you. I don't know if it would have been that big of a problem. Like, I think if somebody's going to buy an Xbox Series S, for Halo, and the understanding is like, hey, you know, split screen's pretty demanding. Split screen won't work. You can still play the game and you'll still get the experience, but that's a specific facet that will be unavailable to you. I feel like if they just made something like that a little bit more clear, or that was even something that was on the table, that it would have been a lot more canny. Because, you know, people buy hardware with limitations, understanding those limitations all the time. And like, how many people really utilize split screen anyway? You know, so imagine the handful of people who bought a Series S because it was cheaper are now kind of burned. It just would have been wise to be a little bit more clear with the messaging of what the Series S is, because I do think the Series S is a pretty good machine. It's like a really good back compat machine, especially. And the fact that you can play modern stuff on it with like some drawbacks is really convenient and nice, but they should have, I don't know, man. They should have decoupled this a while ago. They should have decoupled it the second Halo Infinite had split screen problems. Quite frankly.
Yeah, it's been a problem for a while. And yeah, I don't know. I think that there was a lack of wisdom, although one I would have bought into, to say we want to proliferate the platform at a lower price point, which is great in the short term, but the more of those you sell, the more married you are to this lower bottom line. I think it was wise in the mid and long term for Sony to say like the baseline PlayStation 5 is the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then we can build atop that, and that might make it a little more painful at retail for people to afford, but it gives us a lot more leniency to increase the power and then lower the price later on.
Yeah.
And now, because as I understand it, there are more Xbox Series S's than there are Series X's in people's hands, which means they're not only married to that console, they're married to that console for a plurality of their people. And that's going to have ramifications. And so I wonder, you're absolutely right, Chris. They could have just said in the beginning, there are going to be caveats with the Xbox Series S beyond mere frame rate and resolution. And once in a while, we're going to come up to those. And if they just had the unfortunate reality for them is they left millions of dollars on the tables, and it doesn't matter for Microsoft because they have so much money that Xbox is nothing to them. But they left a lot of money on the table by simply not conceding that earlier and having Baldur's Gate at launch, which is just, be, at least on console launch in September.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, easily. That's I don't know, man. It's just weird stuff. I do think, I don't know, man. I do think in some ways a lot of this doesn't necessarily matter, because as we've seen with the Switch, all that really matters is good software. So like, even if the Xbox Series S is hampered in some way from a power standpoint, what they really need is the software to sell the machine in the first place. Mm-hmm. Like the Switch can't run Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid on PS2 all that well, you know, like, and it's slaying because they're making really good games for it. And that's really what Xbox needs. I don't think the power of the Series S is necessarily this big problem. It's just an unfortunate confusion point for them now that they have to kind of reverse on some of their promises, when they really could have just been a little bit more forthright, or at the very least not forthright, just because anybody who understands anything about hardware knew that this would happen at some point. So it's hard to imagine that they didn't know. So just have the understanding that this is going to be a problem in the future, and transparently express that.
I think it brings into focus a little bit of the incoherence of Xbox's approach generally, Joe, or maybe a little more generously, it would be that we've been able to identify the evolution of the way they feel about consoles, because the idea is to have this lower cost entry to the Xbox ecosystem with a console, but you don't care about selling consoles.
Yeah.
Right? So that doesn't square at all, just alone. And then they said during Gamescom, which I think is not that surprising, that they're not going to do a mid-gen console. So, like a refresh, a 1.5 as it were, and thus PlayStation is going to clearly do one in the fall of 2024, which I'm amped about. And so the strongest console, they'll be moving upwards, and Microsoft will be tethered downwards. And I do wonder if this is going to be a problem for developers. My prediction on this is that within the next 12 months, probably by the end of next year, let's say, they will just remove the parity clause.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, you have to release your game on both, but you can cut things out and stuff like that. I don't think that I don't know that we're ever going to get to a point where they're going to skip S. And that will have that will have some sort of effect on the games, I guess. But similar to what we're going to see with Starfield, which is going to look absolutely stunning on PC, probably, it's going to look really, poor probably and run poorly on S.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay. And our best to BioWare as they figure things out, of course. Figure it out, guys. Number 5, final news item. New sales data is in for both the United States and mainland Europe, and the data paints a very rosy picture for PlayStation, first/second party games and third party games alike. All data is for the month of July 2023. Let's begin here in these United States, where PlayStation 5 was again the best-selling console of the month in both units sold and money made, and it is atop both categories for the year to date as well. And the best-selling game of the month might surprise you. Gunfire Games' Remnant 2, which, as you may recall, sold 1 million units across platforms in only a week. This knocked Blizzard's Diablo 4 to second place for the month. Other notable games in the top 20 include Final Fantasy 16 at 5, Street Fighter 6 at 8, MLB The Show 23 at 10, Exoprimal premiering at 16, Miles Morales at 17, Spider-Man at 18, and Dead Island 2 at 19. Over in Europe, PlayStation 5 is in an even more dominant position. Indeed, a graphic being widely shared on social media by German research GfK notes that in their home country, PlayStation 5 is currently experiencing a 300% year-on-year sales increase. As for the sales charts, well, they're different in Europe. The top 5 games in Europe across digital and physical for the month of July 2023 were in order: Grand Theft Auto 5, FIFA 23, Red Dead Redemption 2, Diablo 4, and Hogwarts Legacy. Other notable games on the list include A Way Out at 15, It Takes Two at 19, and Final Fantasy 16 at 20. So some new sales data as PlayStation 5 continues to sell very, very well, and Final Fantasy 16 seeming to do well as well. Great English, Colin. All right, let's move on to listener inquiries as we wrap up the show. 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Could not do it without you. Thank you for your support over there. Use the thread we put up each week in the newsfeed. I go through it and I comb through it. You've already heard many of your inquiries. Let's get to more. Zeke the Plumber wrote in and said, "Hello, beloved Sacred Crew. Between Forspoken, Immortals of Avium, and Atlas Fallen, I have played some games this year that feature absolutely atrocious dialogue, at least in my opinion. What's going on with video game writing? I'm not expecting every game to match The Last of Us, but damn, some games feel like ChatGPT writing a Marvel TV show. Is this just the new normal? Thanks. I sincerely love all of your content." Thank you, Zeke, for writing in. Dustin, where are we on the writing right now? How are we feeling about the video game writing generally? I feel like with many things, there's the very high and the very low, and maybe a lot of mediocrity as well. Some of it's pretty painful, I will admit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys see that clip a few weeks back in that Viewfinder game that I played? That it was like a streamer who was playing it and heard there's like a narrator or something. It's like, "Did you just jump through the picture?" or something, very like Marvel-esque. And they just silently pressed pause, went down voice volume, and turned it all the way down. And it's moments like that where we are continually seeing this pop up. And I think it makes sense that if games are written on a delay of 3 to 5 years, that we are seeing Marvel, games that were written 3 to 5 years ago sounding very Marvel-esque, and that was kind of more okay at the time. But now, 5 years later, we've reached a point where that kind of writing has gotten really stale. I think we were right on the cusp of it at the time, particularly at the end of, the phase 3 endgame era, but now we're deep into that. And so now these games are releasing and we're just kind of feeling the remnants of that. I would hope that the pushback we're seeing now will start to course correct some of it. But I think ultimately it's like you said, Colin, there are highs and lows. And just because a game has some bad writing or some poor dialogue doesn't wholly make it a bad game, I would say. I really, that Viewfinder game I thought was really fun. It wasn't the best game I played this year by any means, but it was definitely worth checking out. And yeah, the writing was kind of annoying at points, but there was still plenty of other redeemable qualities as well.
Yeah, and I'm fresh off of a game. We all are in some way of a game with an impeccable writing, in my opinion, which was Final Fantasy 16. So you get these very well written, very well localized games along with a lot of the shit. And Forspoken's dialogue is bad. I also would argue that it is that Marvel-esque stuff, but it's also just not for, I'm 38. I'm a 38-year-old man. I'm trying to I'm trying to remain in that spirit, right?
I don't think I don't think it's for anyone, quite frankly.
Yeah,
like
okay,
the writing in Forspoken, I think is like I've seen people like way younger than us make fun of it. So like I don't know who the fuck it's for. I don't know. There is like an absence of sincerity in a lot of writing lately. I feel like there's like this desire to be irreverent or this desire to kind of be meta or be self-aware of some aspect of, so like, oh, it's not serious, but like I'll take it seriously for this moment just because like I have to, sort of, otherwise there's no stakes, but also like let's keep it light and fun. It is just kind of flavorless and boring and drab, and I think people are afraid of coming off sincere because I think sincerity requires a lot of chops to pull off well, because otherwise it might come across as campy. But like I would rather have campy dialogue than irreverent dialogue all the time. Like some of my favorite lines of dialogue in my favorite games of all time aren't like exceptionally well written lines. It's just they belong in the game, and you can tell like it's like there's sincerity to it. There's like a certain level of homage to it. One of my favorite lines in Halo 3 is like the dumbest lines ever. And it's like, our units are requesting a rally point. Where should they go? To war. Ridiculous. That's not actual information at all. But it's also be like, where should we go? It's like, how am I supposed to know? Like, I don't know. Like, there's got to be some level of have fun with it without just pulling the curtain down, you know? Like, we're so obsessed with like meta narratives now. And I do think there's like an element of that's seen a lot in like just superhero movies now with like the multiverse aspect. It's like, oh, everybody's aware that Michael Keaton was Batman once. Okay. What does that do for the story that you're telling or like the characters that you're working with? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't get any satisfaction out of seeing Michael Keaton plucked out of a universe that was way more interesting and put into this like drab fucking nothing. Like, it's, I don't know. That's a separate issue, the multiverse fatigue, but I don't know. I would just like writers to have a little bit more faith in what they're writing and have a little bit more fun with what they're writing without leaning into like the whole Borderlands, like nothing matters territory. Because that's really getting annoying. Like
Twisted Metal, I think, is written very much like that, in some way.
Yeah, but Twisted Metal is also just kind of it's baffling that Twisted Metal exists at all.
Yeah,
as a show. So it gets and Twisted Metal is impossible to take seriously. Like not super seriously. There's a clown driving an ice cream truck. You know, like that can only be so serious. But I don't know. Borderlands got away with it because it was really, really fresh at that time. And I do think certain games handle it better than others, but like just overall, go back to sincerity.
Stop with the irreverence already.
Yeah. Irreverence is annoying now, in my opinion.
God, ChatGPT is being fed all these scripts and being told that it's good. So
oh yeah,
it's gonna be great.
That just happened.
Sean Kelvey Jr. wrote in, said, "Hey guys, I don't think this feature on the PlayStation 5 is brought up enough, and that's game sharing. My friend and I have been doing this since the PS4. My friend and I saved lots of money by taking turns purchasing the big AAA games. Also helps try games out if you have intentions of buying it because you have access to your friend's library. For example, I wouldn't have purchased Final Fantasy 16, but since my friend brought it, I was able to download it and play it, and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, have a great weekend. Go Patriots." Thank you, Sean, for writing in. Dustin, game sharing. Are you interested in this at all? Do you ever? I know some people do have a pretty sophisticated, and have since the PS3 era, online, like you can read about them and stuff, like people that have these very sophisticated ways of sharing games with each other and like no one buying or paying for things or paying for as little as possible. I don't really begrudge people taking advantage of the system within the parameters of whatever the rules are. So a good example is I bought Final Fantasy 16, but Micah wants to play and will probably just log into my console to play it. But we don't really systematize it, you know? Have you ever seen anything like this, Dustin? Are you interested in doing something like this?
Yeah, well, I think we have this set up that I think Ben is sharing with my PlayStation 5, but I'm not sharing in getting his games. But I think that we could just set that. It's just because it's not set up. So we are using it to some degree. But yeah, if it's like you said, well within the PlayStation, what they offer, this is a feature that they have for people to use. So I think it's a great way for people, like the Write-In said, to be able to check out games or to be able to save some cash by splitting with a friend. You can also do that with a physical game as well. That's not like totally new, but it's cool that you can do this in this way. So, but yeah, I haven't set it up for Ben's just because I usually just end up buying games that normally the games that I would buy that we would both have, that like I would buy it physically and then we would both have our own copies anyway. So it's not something I would really use, but it's nice that it's there.
Yeah. Chris, are you interested in this digital game sharing?
There was a point in time where I was like, when I was destitute and eating a handful of corn pops as my only meal that day, I did do a significant amount of game sharing with friends of mine, but I don't know. I have no reason to do, especially like because I'm a part of every ecosystem, and so Switch is its own very isolated thing. I don't buy anything digitally generally on Switch. I get those games physically when I can. Sometimes I'll break that rule, but more often than not, those are physical games, so I'm not really sharing those in the same way. Xbox is everybody I know who has an Xbox has Game Pass, so there's really nothing that we need to share because we all have the same library essentially, and chances are, like, if there's a game that's not in that library that we would like to play, like it's a big enough game that we all play it. And PlayStation I treat kind of like my exclusive box, which are like the big games which everybody gets anyway. So like I haven't had a reason to do it or a necessity to do it, but I do like that it's a feature there because it did come in handy really, 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 really heavily back when I really needed distractions. So I value it pretty highly. It's a pretty cool feature.
Well, it's cool that they've, since the PS4 era, really made it more official. I think you have to have PlayStation Plus, but like you said, you can have, I think, one person attached to your console to kind of share games that way. But it was funnier back in the day, beginning with PS3, what people would, like the hoops people would jump through. I remember reading about it and witnessing these things of people all signing into like the same accounts. I think that's, I don't think it's the similar fashion, but I think that's how Power Picks began, was as this ridiculous trophy account that people slowly realized was many people playing games on this one account. And I could be mistaken on who it was, but I think it was that. And so I loved that people used to really game the system back in the day, and then they kind of made it so they can make a little bit of money on PlayStation Plus and make it just a little more official. Because the easiest way to share your games now is to just have people sign into your primary console with their own name if you're like in the same place, which is what I was just saying.
Right. Yeah.
What I would do with Micah, but that to me that's part of the deal. But that's like really, you could, I guess, have some sort of really mechanized, cheap way of sharing a PS5 with your friends, I guess, and each have your own name on it with this one console or this one name that's buying everything. But they've still made it somewhat annoying to share, and that's fine. I mean, these are digital games; it's not physical.
Yeah,
but it is cool that people do it and take advantage of it, and you should take advantage of it. All right. Greg Hanley wrote in and said, "Greetings from Ireland, Sacred Men. Tomorrow you wake up and you are living in any world or environment that you have experienced in gaming thus far. Where would each of you elect to spend your time? I really struggle to narrow in on some of the beautiful, peaceful landscapes from World of Warcraft, such as Grizzly Hills, or something more dark, adventurous, and intriguing, such as Central Yarnum. While I am aware that there are obvious dangers in these cases, I'm wondering if the intrigue would get the better of you. Have a fantastic week and eternally grateful for the happiness that LSM content brings me each week and every week from such a diverse set of topics and speakers." Thank you, Greg, for writing in. Dustin, where do you want to go? He says Yarnum. You want to go in Yarnum?
Dude, well, that's the thing, is that Yarnum would be a very cool place to be, but he acknowledged the danger. And that's kind of the other thought I had was Rapture being underwater in this city. Maybe Rapture will say pre-fall, where maybe there's a few unsavory things going around, but you're not worried about a crackhead slicing you in half.
Right.
That might be good. So I think those are pretty intriguing. But if we're saying this is a vacation that's for relaxing, I immediately thought Isle Delfino from Super Mario Sunshine. A nice little relaxing, sunny vacation. But I gotta say, BioShock has got it. That would be so. That's why I want BioShock VR so bad, just to be able to be there and see the scale and look outside the window and see all the, the fish and the octopus hanging around in the beginning intro part and all the Art Deco statues and stuff. Be very neat, just very dangerous.
Chris, where are you going?
I'm Night City, man. Night City.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Night City is so fucking cool. Like I really, and maybe it's because Cyberpunk is just like on my mind because of they did like a little showcase for, or like it wasn't a showcase. It was a trailer for Phantom Liberty and all the stuff coming to that, and it really got me in the mood for Cyberpunk again. And I just think back to playing that game, and it's like, this is such a cool textured place that I would love to, because it seems like one of those places where there's a lot of danger for sure, but it also seems like if you're just careful enough, you could have a neat experience and not die. Like it's not like Gears of War where it's like you're dead, or BioShock where chances are you're in a really dire circumstance. Night City's the one location that really jumped out to me when I read this question.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Cyberpunk is truly a phenomenal game. It really, really is. It's a really, really special game. I don't know that I'm going to play the expansion, but I'm kind of over it now. But I really did like 2077. I really, really enjoyed platinuming that game. For me, I don't know. I'm most intrigued by fictional locations that would be dangerous. I guess if I could be like a passive observer or just see them in some sort of freeze frame. Mm-hmm. Like I'm really, really obsessed with Dracula's Castle and the Castlevania games. I just love it, and all of its different permutations and iterations. I'm just really, that would be such an intriguing place to go, or the countryside around it, where all the creepy shit is happening, and all the cursed nature of Castlevania. I'd love that. And for some reason, what came to mind too is also Ishimura in Dead Space, which is the ship. Which is
no way in hell. Yeah.
It would just be fun to like that level of fear and all of that. I don't know. I think I would love to see that, as long as, again, there was no danger.
Yeah.
Right? Go ahead.
The thing of it, because I was thinking like, ooh, Skyrim. Like I feel like Skyrim is a really interesting world, but also like there's too much in that world that I don't have a hope of understanding. Like there's just like magic and all the like sacrifice and soul gems and people getting trapped in the bodies of dogs and stuff, where it's like I would never sleep well. Like I would wake up with constant panic attacks in that world, just wondering like, oh, was I cursed by a gnome while I was asleep? Like I can't. Like Night City's as far as I can go, where it's like I understand computers. Okay, like I get I don't need to worry about my soul being stuck somewhere necessarily, or like Dracula's Castle, where it's like occult shit, where like I don't even have a fraction of a chance of understanding. It's too much.
I was just laughing thinking of you having a panic attack, and then the Skyrim like level up thing pops up and over the screen, and it's like panic attacks 13 or whatever.
Yeah. Dude, 40.
Yeah, you're getting.
Yeah. I'm way up in that constellation skill tree thing with that one.
All right. Doofus wrote in, said, Sacred Crew, with the endless onslaught of remakes, remasters, and reboots these days, it can feel like any tiny bud of a new idea in the AAA space is certain to be stamped out. When some of the best received games this year in the remakes of Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space are essentially games from over a decade ago, it paints a more dire picture. We all know how data-driven funding for new projects is these days, so how do we encourage new IP development when the supporting data can only measure the past? It's a good question, but I think that, I'm curious what you guys think of this. I feel like that, and maybe I even am guilty of this sometimes, because I want lots of new things, but I think generally speaking, in a broad sense, we're getting lots of new games.
Yeah,
it is happening. I think that we're in this Spielbergian situation where the claim of there being 7 different movie types or stories to tell, like there's just only so much you can really do. If you're just a movie fan, eventually you just start seeing the same movies over and over again, and that's just the way it is. And I think we're getting to a position in games where things are becoming curiously stagnant from a design and gameplay standpoint, but I think it's just standardizing itself. And I actually think people are trying to do new things. So the best thing you can do to support new IP development is to buy new IP. Although that in and of itself is counterintuitive, because then that new IP becomes a series. So I don't really know that there's any way to control it other than maybe to follow your own heart economically. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think some of the games that are being remade now are from such a different era design wise that I actually think it benefits the broader industry for those games to be reintroduced in the way that they've been reintroduced. Like something like Dead Space or Resident Evil 4. I mean, during your and Dagan's Halo 2 knockback conversation, you were talking about like you're longing for AAA games that could be completed in a weekend. And that spoke to me really heavily because like I really do think Dead Space Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake are some of the best paced games that have come out this year. And I don't think it's a coincidence that those are from a very similar era in time where that was kind of the expectation. And I think those games doing as well as they do now, hitting the zeitgeist in the way that they did, hitting critical acclaim in the way that they did, I feel like that has a chance to maybe remind people of what's so good about these experiences and why, like, oh, maybe some of these games are, you look at some older games and like, maybe that's outdated and maybe certain aspects of them are, but pacing isn't one of them. And we could stand to have more of these. Especially if they're going to be done with as much care and love that Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space are being done with. Not, I wouldn't make the same argument for like Red Dead Redemption, which is basically them re-uploading the game to a new store space. Like I would argue these are very, very different things. But also, like you said, we still are getting like a ton of new games. We just have, Immortals of Avium just came out. That's like a new thing, and it's not. It's not getting amazing reviews, but I didn't hear anything necessarily bad about it either. So, like, I don't know. I think the idea that we don't have a lot of new IP to work with is not really one that's factually true. I think it might just feel that way because so much of what is popular is stuff that's well established. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's also mixing up remakes with truly new ideas, and it does kind of seem that in some way that it's sad that some of the best games of the year are these remakes, but I think you're right that repositioning them with a more modern take is just good for the memory of that game and for them to make a little bit more money on those games and maybe revive them in some way. I think that's a solid point. I guess I'm most concerned by a lack of value judgment with games, and this is something I went into on Xbox 2+1 with Ran and Jez, which was I just think that we always talk about game, and this has been true for 20 years. Games make more money than movies. It's like, who cares? Like the value of video games, and let's say like the console space that we care about specifically is still so financially undervalued compared to what it's making. And a lot of that comes from this idea that things just need to be mega long and big and broad always, or they have no value and they're not valuable. And I just think that that's so crazy. And I think it's really vital to ask yourself why you're willing to spend $15 to go see Oppenheimer. Well spent, $15 for a 3-hour film, but you have a fucking cartoon spit take when a game is $70. It doesn't make any sense. And even if you think that Oppenheimer, imagine 2007 Halo 3, right?
Yeah.
That game's 8 to 10 hours long. So that's at the time $50. I think games were still $50 at that time, right? No, maybe they were 60.
No, it was 60.
Yeah, 60.
It was $60, yeah.
So $60 for that game at that length, obviously this huge multiplayer suite and all the rest. I'm not discounting any of that. But a very high quality experience that people at that time didn't balk at. I don't remember people saying at the time, and this was true of Resistance and Killzone as well, I don't remember people saying these games are too short. There was something inherent about the value of getting something very high quality for 8, 10, 12, 14 hours. And if we embrace that mentality more and we're willing to pay for the experience and what the experience costs, not only for anyone to like get their profit, but just to make it, then we can have those days back. But instead we're flooded with just everyone criticizes Final Fantasy 16 for its a lot of its side quests. And okay, there's probably some merit to that criticism, but removing all of it would have made the game shorter and people would have just criticized it for that. And they could have kept that mega high AAA quality that you see in some parts of the game that is so extraordinary and said, that's the game. And then people would be like, it's only 20 hours long though.
It's crazy.
You know, and that's
it's so crazy.
It's just it Dustin, let's get you in here. What do you have to say?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the, new IP versus remake, remaster, sequel, whatever, I think that the landscape in gaming doesn't feel as tiring to me as movies, because oftentimes when we see remakes in particular, overall, not in every instance, but it's a lot of times we're seeing games kind of being like revitalized and often brought to a new audience that wasn't necessarily there when it came out, like Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space. I'm sure there's tons of people that, or younger or teenagers, whatever, that weren't really playing those types of games when it came out. And so even though it is an old game, they were able to make it feel fresh again by remaking it in a modern lens. I think that also can be said with a lot of IP as well, being that we see franchises that while they are, a game like, particularly I'm thinking of Resident Evil 7. It is the 7th game in the Resident Evil series, which should be like, okay, enough is enough. But they were able to reinvent what Resident Evil is while staying true in a lot of ways to the roots. And so to me, that doesn't, it negates that franchise fatigue that you often feel in a lot of other mediums. And there are games that definitely, like Call of Duty is one where a lot of people are like, it's the same thing every year. And it's like, yeah, and that's still going to be appealing to a lot of people, and other people it's not going to be, or you can dip in and out every few years as you like. But I just I think that we're still seeing a lot of good new IPs as well. I mean, particularly thinking about PlayStation this year with, well, not this year, but this console with Returnal was an awesome new IP. And then late last generation with Ghost of Tsushima being a great new IP that, yeah, we're going to get a sequel for Ghost of Tsushima, but it's still going to feel fresh, I think, in a lot of ways, because it's only going to be the first sequel, I guess, or the second game. So it still feels relatively new. I think that there are reasons to be concerned, though, when you hear about all these Horizon projects. That's something that we've really been monitoring, is like, yeah, there's definitely potential for a lot of stuff getting beat to death. So yeah, and the key is just, like you said, Colin, supporting those new IPs that you do like and enjoy, is that make sure you go out and support them and buy the games.
Yeah, and I also think, per your point of Resident Evil, I think that it's important to note that Capcom really tried to fuck that series up. Not obviously intentionally, but they really went out of their way they pulled the plane up right before it smashed into the mountaintop. Mm-hmm. And they somehow got over it, and now it's aloft again. Because remember, it was like Dead Aim and Outbreak and Umbrella Chronicles and Dark Side Chronicles and Mercenaries and fucking Operation Raccoon City and all this shit's like, what? And that was all during the time of 5 and 6 too, which is like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So they really tried, but 7 saved them. It saved everything. And just a new way of looking at things. So I think that that's an important point, that even the best of the best, like Capcom, and they're at an all-time high right now doing the best work that they've ever done, they had to like take a step back and reassess Resident Evil and save it. And I appreciate that as well. So yeah, we need new games. We also need to, I don't mind, again, sequels and trilogies and stuff like that. I just think that there's a time to walk away from everything. I think even going into games assuming a trilogy is fine. That's even unoffensive to me. But it gives you time to kind of get it all out of your system. Maybe make a little spin-off or a backdoor for a new game somewhere in the future if you want. But it's too mechanized and systemic now. The way we were seeing that with PlayStation Productions earlier. It's like, now we're going to have a fucking Jak and Daxter. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Tyler Vandelbrini wrote in and said, hello, CDC. The console wars have seemed to be getting a lot of attention in recent memory, but what about the genre wars? Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter, Call of Duty versus Halo, Prototype versus Infamous. I remember these battles were much more heated than any console war when I was younger. So what are some of the big genre wars you guys remember, and whose side were you on? Thank you for the best PlayStation podcast around. Thank you, Tyler, for writing in.
Oh,
Chris,
man.
You must have been a Halo versus someone. Like, I remember from the PlayStation perspective, the really abortive Killzone versus Halo attempt, right? Like, Killzone was going to be the Halo killer.
Yeah.
And that never obviously happened.
That was I'll say that was never Killzone was never a topic of conversation. It really was always like, I remember Halo versus Call of Duty very, very vividly because those were the games that like everybody was playing. Like if you went online and you looked at your friends list, there was a pretty good chance, especially in 2007, 2008, 2009, that like the majority of those people would be online playing Call of Duty 4 or Halo 3 or whatever the most recent Call of Duty was. And I don't know, it bothered the hell out of me because I remember just being like, guys, these are very not the same experience. Don't make me play Call of Duty 4 with you. Please don't do it. And I did, and I had a good time. Like I like Call of Duty. Like back then it was a little bit more annoying because you had to be like, I don't know, everybody had their own preferences and you had to buckle, and like sometimes you would get your way and sometimes other people would get theirs. But now I look at those times fondly. Like Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2 and World at War were fun times. But the one that I remember being so baffled by, and you might remember this specifically, Colin, was BioShock Infinite versus Last of Us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was such a fucking confusing conversation to me because they were so unalike in almost every. I think literally the only comparison point for them was that they had a female AI companion.
Yeah, that was it.
And that was literally it. It was like Elizabeth was Ellie. And that was enough reason for people to be like, we should compare these two. And I remember being so frustrated because I feel like a lot of the conversation was just like, well, Last of Us is obviously a masterpiece and BioShock Infinite in comparison sucks. And it's like, please don't do this. I hate this conversation so deeply. But I remember all of these to some. Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter was less my scene. I wasn't really into fight. I was more of like a Marvel versus Capcom was my religious pillar, and anybody that I talked to in the fighting game community didn't disagree with that either. Like everybody was like, yeah, that's a greatest of all time type deal. Prototype versus Infamous, I remember.
Yeah, that was a funny one.
Yeah, team Prototype all the way. But,
oh man, yeah, you would be.
Yeah, I am.
Dustin,
still.
Where are you on this on the genre wars? Any come to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean it's the same as Chris. The Call of Duty versus Halo. I remember feeling during Modern Warfare 4 a little bitter about because I was very much a Halo boy at
Modern
that
Warfare
time.
4? Modern Warfare 4, did you say?
Call of Duty Modern or Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
Right,
yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, that one was a little tough for me, and I remember being mad because just the first time I played Modern Warfare at my friend's house, I was really bad at it. And so immediately it sucked. Like that was me. I was like, oh, this game sucks compared to Halo. It's no fun. I don't have a chance. I just see someone and then I'm dead. Halo is way better, obviously. And so I was bitter about it, particularly as Call of Duty, with Modern Warfare became more and more popular. And so eventually I conceded and also played. When Modern Warfare 2 came out, I was in, but it was disappointing because Halo was my boy, that was my shit. It's particularly Halo 2 on the original Xbox with Xbox Live. To see it get dethroned was a little sad. So, and now obviously Halo's been dethroned many times over. Times, so it's just become a way of life.
It's crazy to think about that time because it took Call of Duty, which was like a multi-platform game, to even touch. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of insane when you think about it,
dude.
Like that it was just on one platform, and it took this Call of Duty thing, which is still happening, by the way, which is still going on yearly.
I remember Halo 2 was so cool because it was so big that I remember the day. It was either the day after it came out or something. It was on the front page of the newspaper that was like, this game broke all these insane records, and this is a game that your grandpa would be like, oh, you playing that Halo 2? It was very much a cultural moment.
Times Square was fucked that day.
Yeah,
it was insane, and I barely remember that, but I remember seeing it on the news. Like, Jesus Christ, there's a lot of people in Times Square for this. It was like the Seinfeld finale. Do you remember that, Colin?
I do, and there's pretty cool videos of people that have it. Of that, people watching it on the big screens and stuff.
Yeah,
I do
so
remember
weird.
That. I was gonna say, I remember. So yeah, Halo and Killzone was a funny one. Call of Duty and Battlefield
Oh yeah.
was a big one for a while. Let me think. So like some of them are wrapped up in the consoles, like Sonic and Mario or whatever. That's Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter I was around for, and I always found that so comical because it was very similar to Mario and Sonic, where I'm like, are you kidding me? Even as a young kid, I'm like, there's Mortal Kombat's cool, but are you kidding?
Yeah.
There's literally no comparison there at all. So yeah, there was quite a few funny ones going on. And then I guess Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest to a degree, but they kind of missed each other in some sense in the West, so that wasn't really so much a thing here. But there are a lot of them. It's a funny question. And now it's like Fortnite and Apex Legends or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Or just like live service against anything else. Basically.
Sick Sad World. All right.
Yeah.
Cody Jones wrote in, final question, says, greetings, gents. Have any of you tried No Man's Sky in the past few years? I was surprised myself last week to see a trailer for its 7th anniversary and was impressed Hello Games has supported it up to this point. As someone who will be locked out of trying Starfield as I do not own an Xbox or a PC, I am considering giving it a try for a deep dive into a space adventure. Thanks, boys. I played No Man's Sky right when it came out, and I wasn't into it at all, and I never went back to it. It obviously is a very interesting story about Hello Games saving it, and not only saving it, but Final Fantasy XIV like bringing it to prominence, actually, after it was left for dead for a while. So that's very impressive, but it's not for me. And I know you're not necessarily saying this, Cody, but the comparisons between No Man's Sky and Starfield, I think, are going to leave a lot of people disappointed if they think No Man's Sky is going to be, or I assume Starfield is going to be a vastly superior game, but maybe I'm wrong for what you're looking for that sort of thing, storytelling and role playing and all of that. But where are you guys on this? Dustin, let's go to you. Have you played No Man's Sky recently?
Not recently at all, but I just saw in this most recent update, I haven't seen anyone report on how good it is, but apparently the VR experience is vastly improved. They've added the foveated rendering, where one of the big complaints, because I wanted to check it out again on PSVR 2, but apparently it was very stinky and the resolution was nasty and it wasn't worth checking out at the time. So apparently they've gotten a lot better at that. And the thought of, I don't know if I necessarily need to get in and be really into No Man's Sky, but
get in there.
I got to fly the ship around in VR. I really want to just, get on a ship, fly off of a planet, fly onto another one. If I fuck around with that for an hour or two, I'll probably be good. But it was nice to see how they were able to, I don't know, redeem themselves or just, make right on what they did with that game. And for people that are into that genre of, crafting survival type games, or, where you're building bases and gathering materials and stuff like that, it's supposed to be very, very awesome. And to see them continue to support it, they've made good, I think, for the people who bought that game. They don't need to keep going, but they do. And so it's encouraging to see that kind of passion in the industry.
Have you had any experience recently, Chris, with No Man's Sky?
Not really. I was trying to figure out how to answer that question because I did install it on the Steam Deck out of curiosity, but I didn't really play it for long because my battery ran out, and then I just uninstalled it because I was like, by the time I got home, I had no real interest in checking it out. But I mean, I'm glad they solved it. When I played it the first time, first of all, No Man's Sky was a huge red flag for me immediately. Because I remember seeing the first trailer for it, and they flew into space and they did that seamless transition. And I was like, that's not possible without a massive caveat. Like, I remember thinking, like, even when I knew very, very little about game development or compared to like what I know now, like, I just remember feeling like we can't even get like, or like the idea that like, oh, we're going to have all these planets and they're all going to be like really, really fun to experience. And I'm just like, we can't even make like a full scale version of New York City that's competently like fun to traverse without sacrificing space on it. Like, totally. we have to shrink a full city down to make it playable and fun. So how the fuck is that going? Like, how are we going to get like a full planet that's interesting? Like, there's no fucking way. And every trailer was the same exact trailer. It was like, I'm going to go into space and I'm going to land and look, a giraffe. And I just remember being like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And then it came out and it was fucked. And I played it a little bit, and there are some parts that I liked about it. I think the tech of No Man's Sky is really impressive. I think landing on a surface like that, on a planet, flying into space, landing on another one. I think that's like really, really cool. And it's part of something that I wish Starfield had that. Like it's a really impressive, experience. I remember thinking that it was very, very cool that was even possible at all, even if the planets were barren and uninteresting. But I think a lot of the visual design of No Man's Sky kind of bothers me. Like I don't like how any of the aliens look. I don't like that ball looking gun that you have. That, I don't know. It's just kind of not aesthetically pleasant to me. And art design is such an important factor for me that like I can't ignore it, especially when the game is just art. It's just like what you're seeing. It's about exploring and like, oh, look at this new planet. Look at this new creature. Yeah. That's like half the game is like how things are going to be interpreted by the artists to convey an idea to you. And
like endless ocean in space. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't speak to me. I'm sure it's a far richer experience than it used to be, but I would imagine that the type of game that they're going for is something that doesn't really suit what I'm looking for. Like I'm not really into Subnautica or like any of these kind of like vibe games, I guess you could call them. Like I like them for about an hour or two, and then I have to be like, what's the combat system? Oh, there isn't? Okay.
Time to go.
Like, yeah, time to go.
All right. Well, time to go here too. No Man's Sky, still going strong. Congratulations to Hello Games for turning that around. I think they did the right thing. Yeah, it's a great story. I'd love to know more about it one day. But in the meantime, let's exit. Time to go. Chris, closing comments, my friend.
During the show, I had a really vivid image of like a robot Western game where the main character goes beep boop, and I thought that made me smile. So I thought I'd share it. But I don't know, man. I got so much editing to do today. But I'm gonna try and make some time. I want to finish Bramble. It seems like a really approachably, like decently short game. Like I can't imagine Bramble's gonna be like 28 hours. And if it is, fuck that. So I'm probably gonna try and finish off a little bit of that today.
Cool.
But nothing else.
I saw that it's like a mix of Westworld and Borderlands. The character you described.
Yeah, beep boop beep.
That's like SteamWorld Dig.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true enough.
Exactly.
Dustin, closing comments.
Brief story I wanted to share with the class, with the audience here. A few weeks ago, I was at the Butler Farm show, and I saw a guy who had a One Piece shirt, and I walked by him, and I said, I didn't point like in his face, but I said, "Hey man, nice shirt," really loudly. Totally ignores me, keeps walking. So we keep walking. I say to my one friend, I'm like, what was that? Was that guy like the anime meme of a loser can't even deal with someone interacting with him in public? I was just joking, right? Well, I'm standing in line to get food later, and Holly comes up to me and she's smiling and she said, "Hey, I just saw the guy in the One Piece shirt." And he was doing sign language. So he was deaf.
That's awesome. That's a very Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of like situation.
I was I didn't actually think he was an asshole. I was kind of just making a joke to my friend. I'm like, what was up with that guy? He didn't acknowledge me. And then it turns out he was deaf, so he didn't hear me at all. But could have been a lot worse. Yeah. So that was just
that's so funny. That's awesome.
When I was like, that's just it could like I said, could have been worse. But that's all. That's the only story to share. Goodbye. Thank you for listening.
That's a very Seinfeldian circumstance. I love that.
Yeah, it could have escalated dramatically.
Yeah.
But it didn't. All right, good. All right, time for me to go. I'm going to play more Alan Wake, I think, tonight. Go eat, hang out, be with the dogs, be with Micah.
What are you eating tonight?
I don't know. Whatever Micah cooks is what I'm eating. So she always has something lined up and ready to go, something exciting and interesting.
Cooking down there.
Oh, we like to cook down here. She takes good care of me. I appreciate it. When she was gone, because she went away for the last weekend, and I was just on my own. I actually do cook and like to cook, but she's really made me so lazy that I just have to reestablish myself. I have to reestablish my presence in the kitchen.
That's how they get you, man. Yeah. They make you feeble and lazy. How do you like your steaks? Well, all right,
rare.
Rare.
All right, time to go. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support. Patreon.com/laststandmedia, laststandmedia.store for merch. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.